впавши на коліно, своє полкове знамено, дивлюсь на нього я востаннє, у нез'ясованій журбі, всю кров мою, всі скитання, воно вібрало у собі, всю кров мою, Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Хто буде всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів. Робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the stream for day 209 and 210 of the news.
And of course, we're going to be reporting the past 48 hours of the war in Ukraine today, both on day 209 and 210, and we have some big news to cover, of course, before the stream starts. Now, a lot of y'all may be thinking that tonight we will be showing our faces on stream, and we'll be doing this forever and ever and ever. But the face reveal for now is only a one-off thing. We may show up on videos in the future again, but due to the, I guess you could say the limitations of how our stream works, unfortunately, we won't be able to be on camera on here. But I hope you all enjoyed that little face reveal yesterday. I've seen that in the 10-minute countdown, that's almost what everyone's been talking about, is the face reveal. And the most common comment, Matthew, is that you were supposed to have my voice and I'm supposed to have your voice, which is hilarious. It looks
yes, it is hilarious. I see a ton of people saying that.
Yeah, and everyone is saying that, and it's been hilarious to both Matthew and me. And also, the reception that we got was incredibly good, especially compared to what I was thinking. I thought we were both about to get ripped limb by limb for doing a face reveal and letting down everyone's expectations, but surprisingly enough, y'all expected us to look that way, just opposite. Matthew was supposed to look like me, I was supposed to look like Matthew, but in the end, I guess it all kind of evens out, except for the voices. But I can talk like Matthew if I need to. So with that, we are now going to finally be moving on into today's immediate pressing news. And starting off, we've been hearing some very concerning news that Russia has brought back Soviet Order number 227 into the modern world. The Russians have now decreed that all able-bodied men that are eligible for service, according to Market Insider and many other news sources that have been hearing about the Russian government and what it's been planning on doing, the Russian government has now declared, once again, that able-bodied men that can serve in the Russian military and will have to remain there until further notice. This, along with another law that was also passed today, stating that deserters will be put in prison and they'll be treated as a criminal offense, meaning that the punishment will, of course, be within the realm of criminality, and some of these prisoners could end up being executed for desertion at the most extreme case. These two things are starting to show a Russia that has been blistered and defeated so badly that they're now pulling out draconian-era Soviet orders from the woodworks to try and make sure that things keep going. Now, the question is, if the Russians do mobilize, which it looks like they are now heading in this direction, is this mobilization going to be serious enough? The answer is most likely no. While the military on paper will be able to get more manpower and more soldiers, these soldiers are going to be far less trained than even the conscripts that are in the Russian army. And so far, we've been watching Russia's contract soldiers duke it out with the contract soldiers of Ukraine in the nation of Ukraine, and they've not even been doing well. The conscripts certainly would not do well, and the conscripts that would now be pushed rapidly into military service would do poorly, to say the least. On top of that, as far as we can tell, they would be equipped with almost non-existent weaponry. There may not be enough tanks, small arms, or normal weaponry at all to even equip these men. So beyond the fact that it's a symbolic gesture that Russia is starting to lose this war and is starting to draw on acts of desperation to try and keep it alive, it's most likely not going to equate to much in the long term. Also, speaking of which, this is a massive keystone moment within Russia's modern history, as this may start to show massive amounts of civil unrest in Russia. If y'all all remember, at the very beginning of the war, Putin pledged to the Russian public that there would be absolutely no conscript soldiers and there would be no mass mobilization under any means because of this war. Now, due to these laws that were just passed today, it appears they're heading in this direction, and they have now broken a promise with the entire Russian public. We already know that many people in Russia were almost up in arms because of the suggestion that may happen 6 months ago, and now that it's definitely on the horizon and most likely will be happening within the next few days and weeks, it starts to become a serious question as to what will this mean domestically for Russia. Will we start to see the Russian government go into complete collapse? The Russian stock market collapsed today just from these laws being passed and the rumors and fears that mass mobilization will begin. And by those economic results, we know that civil unrest will most likely surely follow if mobilization does begin. And I have to say, I have full confidence in the Ukrainian military, regardless of what the Russians do within the coming weeks, whether they mobilize or not, that the Ukrainians will be able to hold their ground, along with massive amounts of Western support, and push the Russians back even further, regardless of the stakes, regardless of the numbers that the Russian troops can levy. We've also seen that draconian and emergency measures are now being advocated on Russian state TV as a favorite whiny Russian guy starts talking about shooting deserters. I'll let y'all see this for yourself. Of course, the subtitles are probably not going to be readable for y'all. They'll probably be cut off about halfway at the bottom of the screen, and so I'll have to read off what this guy is saying. Also, real quick, everyone, I think I have almost overdosed on caffeine. For some reason, I'm getting the jitters tonight from this stuff, so bear with me if I do seem a little off. I'm trying to go through pretty much a caffeine overshock. So anyways, here's the video. There should be military court-martials for traitors and deserters, if we have any, for those who fail to fulfill their military duty, for those who suddenly got scared. This is a war against NATO, and we need to show strength and determination. We need to take into account the means and the force used against us and respond according to military science. Generals that come to the studio tell us a war is strictly about math. So we should be calculating, we should be taking territories when some of our high-ranking officials say that we have drones that are the best in the world. Question, where are they in industrial quantities? If you said that, go ahead and deliver, or explain to avoid arousing certain feelings. Let me remind you, there used to be a Vlasov army made up of traitors, and it was combated. When we talk about a harsh approach, in order to win, you need to act with seriousness. Our political and military leadership understands this. This campaign has specific aspects we won't mention. A different level of societal mobilization is needed. It's good that they started to understand this in cities and started to change their approach and attitude. It's good that our industry is working as needed. Our government is doing great on all levels. And that's propaganda talk if you've ever heard it. Now, the whole entire thing has been propaganda talk, especially at the beginning, talking about traitor battalions and also harsher punishments for traitors and deserters. But this is about the best hardcore propaganda you've ever seen from the Russians in its rawest form, is to sit there and just say everything is being operated the best it could ever be at every level, and not even saying that there is room for improvement or maybe there could be something that's done better. This is the rawest propaganda they've ever said. They literally just told the Russian public it's the best it could be. The best, Jerry, the best. And we can see this guy is just, you can tell that the stress in the studio is palpable as they're continuously trying to spin lies to make Russia look like it's doing good. But at the same time, what they're saying is saying that Russia is doing poorly. It's complete opposite of each other. But anyways, we're going to let this continue. It's good that we stopped worrying about what if and started importing whatever and from wherever as our army needs. We should be more harsh, more strict. Then we won't have to worry that people believed us and now they're suffering. Thank God our government is solid. It's like they're trying to reassure the public that the government will be able to survive whatever's coming next, but it almost seems like this word isn't even directed about the war. It almost seems like it's directed towards the public. You know how they're saying the government is solid, Matthew? You see how they're trying to make that subliminal message that our government's intact. If people uprise, we can put them down. The Russian military is getting weapons from wherever they need to make sure that they're capable of doing whatever. It almost seems like they're trying to indirectly tell the Russian public, if y'all try anything, the military is getting rearmed, at least here on the home front, we'll put you down.
And Enforcer, you know what that means. They've been talking behind the scenes about their government potentially being overthrown, or otherwise they wouldn't be talking about it on their media.
And you know they have. And you know that's probably something that's come straight down from the Russian government telling them, We need y'all to start spinning the story that the government is strong, it's capable, and the military is doing well. Although we can see that they're talking about the opposite. What's the reason for punishing traitors and deserters if there's none of them and the government is operating on perfectly fine levels and the military is doing phenomenal? There would be no reason for punishing traitors because there would be none. There would be no deserters. They're saying completely two opposite things at the same time. And once again, you can see the Russian propagandists and their spin in action as they're trying to make the public and try and make us believe in the West that this is the way things are, although it's clearly not. And so with that, that's the end of this little bit of news. And once again, things are starting to look very grave and very bleak inside of Russia. Russia is trying their best at this point to hang on to this war that they've lost already. The Russians have lost nearly 54,000 men in 6 months. 6 months! It took us 10 years in Vietnam to lose that many men, and we consider that most of the time in the United States almost a complete loss as we didn't gain anything from it. The Russians are literally getting slaughtered, and they're not gaining a single thing from it. And we can see that they're still trying to spin the story that everything's fine and everything's going great. But if it was, why are they cracking down on deserters and traitors? If everything was going great, there wouldn't be any need for that. But anyways, that's what Russia's looking like, and it looks like it may collapse soon. And if it does, more power to them. We'll be looking forward to covering that here on stream. With that, we're now moving on to the location unknowns, since we've now covered all of the Russian news. And starting off on day 209, we saw that a Croatian field gun was being used by the Ukrainians, and they took a picture of it. It's a really nice picture, actually. It's almost taken in 4K, and you can see here that the Czechs, well, the Croatians, of course, have also provided military aid to the Ukrainians. We haven't heard a lot, actually, about Croatian military aid. We've heard about other countries that are somewhat in the area, I guess you could say former Austria-Hungary, like the Czechs, the Slovaks, and the Austrians sending equipment to Ukraine, but we've never heard of the Croatians sending equipment. And so it's nice to see that they're also chipping in as much as they can and making sure to keep the war going in Ukraine's favor for as long as possible. And so, it's wonderful to see that the Croatian artillery pieces are making their way to Ukraine. And with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of news, where we can see a Russian artillery strike landing near Ukrainians, and of course, a Ukrainian soldier films himself and his iron resolve. Here's the video of this guy just chilling in an artillery bombardment. Also, we're going to try and get the graphics as best as possible. When you see the shell landed nearby, and he jumped a little bit, but by and large, he's keeping his cool pretty well.
Пидорасы, нахуй.
I love how the artillery barrage is over. He just makes a little laugh. He's like, ha, 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 we almost died, man. We're back at it. And he just gets up and just gets ready to go again. The Ukrainians, regardless of what's going on, they are going to be in this until the end. Their morale has never dropped. And over the war, it seems like it just keeps on getting higher and higher. The Russians can do anything to the Ukrainian army, and they're completely unfazed. They can do anything to the Ukrainian citizens, and they're completely unfazed too. And so it's crazy to see, once again, Ukrainian morale is so high, you can literally drop artillery shells right on top of them, and they're just going to laugh and joke their way through it. And so with that, we are on to the next clip of Location Unknown News, where we saw some Ukrainian stuff going on. And I gotta say, this is some Ukrainian stuff. It looks like they've taken a pickup truck and they've mounted an SPG-9 to the back of it, and so they pretty much made a mobile artillery piece in a way, a smaller sized one. So here's
Yes,
the video.
sir.
See them fire the SPG-9. When you hear that distinct little ringing noise, and they're now reloading the next shell.
Еще вперед. Плюс.
We now see them getting ready to fire the SPG-9 again. They're adjusting its aim to make sure that it's once again coordinating to the same spot. They fire it again, eject the casing, and now they're loading the next.
Давай еще. Еще чуть-чуть вперед еще. Плюс. Немножко вообще капа.
You see them fire it again. And you know something you got to say about Ukrainian artillery is that while this is somewhat basic in a way, it's just an SPG-9 mounted onto a pickup truck. No one ever went into this war thinking that Ukraine was the best military in the world. No one expected them to, well, no one imagined Ukraine like Russia. Russia was imagined to use T-14 armadas and Su-57s everywhere, and instead we got disappointed provincial military personnel fighting in old Soviet tanks being obliterated by modern Western weaponry in Ukraine. And so it's great to see. Of course, if this was the Russians, I'd be ratting on it because they were supposedly the second best military in the world, according to them. The Ukrainians never prided themselves on something like that. They prided themselves on being a good country. And we can see that, once again, Ukrainian ingenuity is coming to the forefront as they mount an SPG-9 onto a pickup. And I gotta say that while it's a simple idea, it hopefully is working quite well. It does allow for the SPG-9 to shoot and scoot a lot faster than it would be if it was just being carried by hand. And so huge kudos again to the Ukrainian Armed Forces as they continue to show the entire world what they're capable of in terms of cunning and intelligence. And so with that, we're now moving on into the next clip where we can see some Ukrainian HIMARS launching off into the distance. And we've actually seen a load of videos like this today. And while we watch these tonight, I want everyone to remember, and let me make sure there's no copyright music. I want everyone to remember that months ago, it was a question as to whether HIMARS would arrive in Ukraine or not. It was a question whether the US would send such an advanced weapon to Ukraine, or if it would even turn the tide of the war. It has become a common sight to see launches of this size and this destructive capability. But just a few months ago, this would have been completely impossible to the Ukrainians, and now we see them on a day-to-day basis destroying dozens of Russian logistical outposts, and of course inflicting massive damage on Russians, I guess you could say, rear-line units. And it's almost just normal daily events these days. It's a huge credit to the ingenuity and the fast learning abilities of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, and also a huge kudos to the United States of America that, of course, provided these artillery systems to be used in Ukraine. And so with that, that's the end of the video, and once again, wonderful to see that those US-provided HIMARS are once again striking deep into Ukrainian territory, well, deep into Russian territory in occupied Ukraine. There's a slip up there, the caffeine's getting to me, but but it's great to see that the Ukrainians are still using those US-made HIMARS to strike deep into Russian-occupied territory, and of course hit the rear-line units, dismantling nearly the front-line units that will remain once the Ukrainian offensives begin again. With that, we're now moving on to our last bit of news on day 209, where we can see a little bit of a Russian propaganda film in a way. What we're looking through right here before I begin this video is a Russian crosshair, and what you're going to see coming in from the left side of the screen is a Russian ATGM that's being fired at this Ukrainian outpost. And it misses! How in the world do you miss? It's a wire-guided missile. You're firing it from a stationary ATGM and a stationary object, and they missed. Look at this, Matthew. This is insane. Look, it's going straight forward. They lift it up and it blows up in the trees.
Oh my goodness.
How in the world? How in the world do you make a propaganda flick and you still miss a sitting target? It's not even moving. And that tells you how terribly the Russians are doing that they can't even aim a simple cornet. The average Russian infantryman is so inexperienced that firing a stationary weapon at a stationary target that's wire-guided is beyond their abilities. So we're going to let this video continue, and it happens again. That was a gesture of goodwill by the Russians, actually. They're letting the Ukrainians know that the next one will miss as well. We can now even see the cameraman getting bored as he's panning the scope around looking for something else interesting. When you see him still looking at the outpost. And here comes the next one, which... Okay, let me explain what's about to happen here. There's a trench in between these two bunkers. This is a bunker, and this is a bunker. And you're about to watch the ATGM miss this bunker and literally hit on the right side shoulder of the trench. How in the world do you miss? I don't even understand how the Russians could be this bad off, but they are. It's unbelievable, honestly. With that, that's the end of the video. And once again, it's showing that Russian forces are more incompetent now than they were at the beginning of the war, and they already didn't set a good precedent for competence at the beginning. And so with that, we're finally going to be moving out of day 209, Location Unknown News, and on into day 210, which is today. And today we saw some unbelievable footage, something that's never really been captured before on film, a tank-on-tank battle. Something the likes of which that you would have seen at the Battle of 73 Easting or during the Battle of Kherson in World War II. This is something that's never been seen before on film, but what you're about to watch is two Ukrainian tanks and two Russian tanks engage each other from opposite ends of a field, and we could see both sides on film at the same time. When you see the drone looking out into the fields, and we see right there a Russian tank, I believe. We now see the tank with somewhat clear Z markings on it. We can hardly see them, but there is white markings on the side of this vehicle beginning to advance. We can now see the Russian BMP firing off into the distance and now turning around to move away. Now we can see two Russian tanks here at the end of this field. And we can now see fire coming down both sides of the field. The drone camera is now adjusting, and as we zoom in, we can see a shell has exploded further in the distance. And we can also see a Ukrainian T-72 advancing from the right side of the screen. A tank battle is about to occur on film in between the Russians and the Ukrainians, and we can clearly see both sides by drone. This has never happened in the course of this entire war, except for once. And that was not a tank-on-tank battle, that was a Ukrainian T-64 engaging a Russian infantry column that was using BTRs. An actual engagement on film in between Ukrainian main battle tanks and Russian main battle tanks has never occurred before in this entire war, 210 days. We can now see what appears to be artillery raining down on one side of the field. We now see the Ukrainian tanks advancing forward. And we now see what appears to be a direct hit onto an electrical substation. Tanks continue to fire off into the distance.
And Enforcer, I see some folks saying that you have the sides mixed up. It's actually the Ukrainians on the other side.
Really? Hang on.
I think so.
Hang on real quick. Let me flip this off screen and go check in the comments. Let's see. Let's see here. I do have them wrong. The tanks that we're looking at on the right side of the screen are Russian. The tanks on the left side are Ukrainian. So with that in mind, terribly sorry about that, everyone. We're now going to continue the video with the correct perspective, as the Ukrainians are actually on the left side of the screen. We can now see the Russian tanks continuing to fire at the Ukrainians. We have not seen the Ukrainian tanks yet again, but we do see a pillar of black smoke now in front of the two Russian tanks. It appears to be a black pillar of death, which may suggest that a vehicle was destroyed in that tree line, although I don't think we saw that on film. See the drone operators continuing to watch this clash in between the Ukrainians and the Russians continue. Well, you see that both sides have not necessarily gotten a direct hit onto their tank forces yet, and when you see that the Ukrainians continue to watch the Russian tanks. Wait a minute. We just saw a direct hit onto a Russian tank. We can now see the fires engulfing the field. We can now see one of the Russian tanks slowly reversing across the field. It appears to be the one that was hit. We can now see them turn around, and the Russian tanks are now retreating from the field. The tanks continue to withdraw. The Ukrainians winning the tank engagement. We can also see right there what appears to be a destroyed Russian vehicle. Actually, a couple of destroyed Russian vehicles. One appears to be an MTLB. The other one may be a main battle tank. The Ukrainians won the tank engagement on film. That we can see both sides clearly from air. The Ukrainians destroyed what appears to be a main battle tank, an MTLB, and the remaining Russians on the field retreated, meaning that the Ukrainians won this tank engagement, the first time we ever saw a tank-on-tank battle on film, and the first time that we ever saw the Russians withdraw from one on film as well. Quite a turning point in this war, and of course, impressive to see that we actually saw Russian main battle tanks go directly against their Ukrainian counterparts, and the Ukrainians came out on top, practically using the exact same tanks. And that tells you how big of a difference in training there really is in between the Ukrainians and the Russians. We didn't see any Ukrainian tanks take casualties on film. We only saw the Russians. And so this is unbelievable to see, and I hope that everyone sees the relevance of this, as this is the first time on film, rather than a few rare historical occasions, that we actually saw a tank-on-tank battle. I know I've said that a lot, but this can't be emphasized enough. This will be looked at for decades down the road as an example of how tank battles actually unfold in real life. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of location unknown news, where we can then see an AA truck get destroyed by a Ukrainian 40mm bomblet. Here we can, of course, see what appears to be some kind of a Russian gaz truck. Matthew, real quick, look at the top of this tank here and tell me, well, not tank, the top of that
Was
AA
that a tank?
truck. No, it wasn't gaz, AA.
I was about to say, I'm seeing things.
I'm sorry, the caffeine's really got me hyped up right now, so I'm kind of stumbling over my words here and there. I think I drank too much because now I'm getting like coffee sweats and stuff. But this truck right here looks a lot like that one, doesn't it?
It does actually.
It does.
What is that truck? Gaz.
This is a gas truck. Before World War II and during World War II, these were pretty much the trucks that the Russians would produce. It honestly looks a lot like a Ford Model A pickup truck with a longer chassis to it. It's not impressive by any means, especially considering that the United States, during the exact same time in World War II, while the Russians were using these trucks, we were lend-leasing them Studebaker trucks, which I'll pull you up because they look a lot better. Actually, Studebaker World War II truck. Let me show you that, because they pretty much made only one model of it. And I gotta say, I don't know about you, Matthew, but out of those two, the Gaz and this one obviously looks like it's better made. Don't know.
It does. It really actually does.
Yeah, I mean, like, the Russians were using, like, a Model T, Model A style cab. The U.S. was already moving into almost the 50s with cab design and, of course, probably the performance of the truck overall. But still, pretty crazy to see. But real quick, moving back to this, we're about to watch the thing get smacked by a bomblet. So without further ado, here's the video. Of course, this got copyrighted music. But when you see the bomblet drop, And boom, it hits literally right in the circle
Wow.
of that triangle, right through the
That
cab.
was good aim.
It was, actually. It's like they went straight for the bullseye. Let's watch that again. Right there, literally right in the middle of that circle. It's a hole in one. That destroyed, of course, the A vehicle as the cab is no longer usable. And that's the end of the video. Pretty impressive to see, and it's good to know that the Ukrainians are destroying vehicles wherever they can. With that, we're now moving on to the next clip of Location Unknown News, where we can see a Russian T-80 also getting hit by a Ukrainian bomblet. Real quick, we'll rewind that since the action happened so quickly. When you see the bomblet get dropped, and it explodes on the engine bay.
Oh, it was so close to the
It was
hatch.
so close. I mean, like, it was just off. It looks like they're adjusting. They're dropping it again, just right in front of the hatch, but we can see a fire break out on the back of the tank. It appears that there may have been some exposed ammunition there that has now done a small cook-off, but quickly subsided. Now, it actually looks like the fire is getting a little bit of steam here, and it may begin to burn out the tank, but they finally got one down the hatch. We can see a little bit of fire erupt from the turret, and that may mean that a fire is now starting to brew up inside that tank, and it'll burn down soon. We now see another bomblet get dropped. The fire's continuing to burn. The fires are really starting to pick up now. And with that, that's the end of the video. Sadly, we didn't get to watch the tank burn down, but a fire like that, being uncontrolled, will eventually reach inside of the tank, or at least heat up the insides of the tank enough that it will burn out completely. And so it's great to see that the Ukrainians are once again knocking out Russian equipment so well, and of course, with the little bomblets. The bomblets are almost the size of a grenade, but they're doing the damage to Russian vehicles in the millions of dollars range each time, and it's impressive to see that each and every time. And so with that, we are now going to be moving on into our next bit of Location Unknown News, where we can see the Russian Ministry of Defense once again trying to spin a story that they're in control of the situation, literally saying in the title, you can tell this was put up by a Russian bot, Tulipon, 240mm self-propelled heavy mortar crews, on duty as Russia attacks Ukraine. How in the world are they attacking Ukraine anymore? They're defending from Ukraine. It's a war of pretty much defending the land they took at this point and trying to survive, not really a war of an offensive anymore. But we can see them fire off the Tulipon, and now they're moving it through the open fields. We now see them showing off the Tulipon once again, lifting up the mortar from its base. We now see them firing off the mortar again. And what's most interesting about showing a Tulipon in action is that these things only have a range of about 6.5 to 7 miles at the farthest. And so this thing is incredibly close to the front lines. I hope the Ukrainians are paying close attention to this video, as this thing is probably within counter battery range of any of their artillery pieces, considering in this video it was in action. And that's assuming it's even at the front lines. It may be inside of Russia on a training field, and they're pretending like it's in Ukraine. You never really know with the Russians. But moving on from this little bit of Location Unknown News and on to our last, we saw another HIMARS firing in Ukraine. And so, as the video loads, here is the video. Let me unmute it real quick. It's got copyrighted music. But we can see the HIMARS firing off in the background. And once again, great to see that Ukrainian HIMARS are being used in mass and firing off large amounts of ammo, and that tells us that unbelievable, untold amounts of damage are being inflicted on Russian supply depots, communication lines, and logistical routes, making sure that the Russian front lines will not be able to stand far longer beyond this. And so with that, that's the end of that video, and that's also the end of our Location Unknown News. We're now going to be moving on into the northern Kharkiv area and covering the news there, but before we get there, we're going to take a quick pause, the first one of the night, to address our polls, and of course, address 3 questions from the chat. And so, without further ado, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, and man, has it been a busy night. I've been clicking over here nonstop, but we do have two polls to address during our first question segment of the stream. And the first one said, what shocked you most about the face reveal? It looks like 42% said both of the above, meaning the enforcer's appearance and voice, and also Matt's voice and appearance. The second runner-up is 32% for Matt's voice and appearance. Then we have 20% for neither of the above, and 5% for the enforcer's appearance and voice. So very clearly, everybody was shocked at both of us, but specifically me. And I've seen it all over the comments section between my appearance and my voice does not match up. Oh, goodness.
Honestly,
but Enforcer, what do you think?
Honestly, Matthew, I know that you and me have been watching this a lot. I'll tell y'all this, being honest with y'all. I was sweating bullets last night before the face reveal because I was incredibly scared that it was going to go poorly for both of us. Because, you know, in my mind, I view myself as Quasimodo. I don't know about Matthew, but I was really scared for y'all to see me on camera because I was like, oh god, this could go really bad. But surprisingly enough, the reception was incredibly good. We got a 99.3% like rate on the video. And not only that, but right now, if I go back and check, it got... Let me check real quick. It's gotten 9,195 likes and 1,600 comments, the highest amount of interaction than any of our videos have ever gotten in channel history. Especially for the amount of views. It's currently sitting around 53,000 views. And so it went surprisingly well. We couldn't believe it. I especially couldn't believe it. And, of course, I've seen all today and yesterday that pretty much everyone has been saying that Matthew's voice is supposed to be my voice, and my voice is supposed to be his voice, and no one expected Matthew to look like, someone called Matthew, I forgot what it was. You know the guy from the movie Glory, Matthew, the officer?
To be honest, not really.
A lot of people are saying you look like him. And then also I've seen a lot of people say different things about me. Someone said I look like Ed Sheeran with a goatee. Someone else said I looked like Mr. Beast, kind of. Oh, crap, we're about to get DDoS for that.
Oh my gosh, you didn't say that.
It. Anyways, we're having bad internet connection issues tonight, so. But anyways, moving on from that. A lot of people have been saying a lot of different things, and I've just got to say, it's been hilarious to see it, but it's also been wonderful to know that everyone received it incredibly well. Of course, we're not showing our faces a lot, and I also feel that showing it on a live stream really stops the live stream from being about Ukraine, and more so my reactions and what I'm doing, which really isn't the purpose of these live streams. Of course, it's more about the war and raising support and letting everyone know what's going on over there. But I'm very glad that everyone enjoyed our face reveal, and then we got loads of compliments because I was very scared.
Enforcer, were you thinking of Matthew Broderick?
Yes, Matthew Broderick shares the same first name as you.
I don't even know who that is.
So let's pull him up real quick. Matthew Broderick.
People were about to say, how do you not know who that is?
Let me try and find an old picture of him real quick. This guy. You actually do look like him.
That's kind of creepy.
That's kind of creepy. He looks like Matthew Broderick. Ah, that's weird. Yeah, you do look like him, Matthew. That's so freaking weird. So when you grow up and you're like 60, you'll look like that.
Oh, man.
and everyone's saying you look like Ferris Bueller, so let's pull that up.
I have no idea who that is either.
Me either. Oh, you look like you did. You did look like that.
Dang, I had no idea so many people look like me.
That's
this is
a
weird.
spitting image, y'all. That's literally Ferris Bueller. Oh man, that's crazy. That's weird.
You got me.
Also, if you remember, Matthew, he's actually the guy who played the officer in charge of the 54th Massachusetts in the movie Glory.
Really?
Yeah. Like, let me pull that up. Matthew Broderick, Glory. You remember this guy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I remember
now it's all coming together. Now it's all coming together. But honestly, he doesn't look like Matthew in this movie with the little goatee going on. But he really does look like Matthew as Ferris Bueller. It's freaking weird. I won't be able to look at Matthew again the same way, but that was a really cool shout out by y'all to say that. And also, a lot of someone said, I actually think it was if I remember correctly, Mark Hodges said I looked like Ed Sheeran with a goatee, and I don't know what Ed Sheeran looks like. No, not Ed Sheeran. It's some other guy. I definitely don't look like that. But yeah, this is just weird. That's just weird, man. I don't even know how to explain that. But anyways, I hope we addressed that poll pretty well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next poll, real quick, let me save my spot in the live chat, is still going incredibly fast. But anyways, our second poll said, do you think the Russian government thinks their people are about to riot or protest in mass? It looks like 48% said yes, it is coming, 32% said maybe, and 20% said no, it's not likely. Now for me, I think that the Russian government's actions indicate that something is about to happen. Their media is definitely getting concerned about people doing something and uprising, it appears by their statements. So I would probably say yes, it's coming, so I would be within the majority. But Enforcer, what are your thoughts?
Can you reread that poll again real quick, because I think I never saw it.
So the Enforcer was reading y'all's comments. I know what he was doing. But anyways, the question was, do you think the Russian government thinks their people are about to riot or protest in mass?
I would actually, addressing that poll, I would have to say I believe the Russian government is getting prepared for the public to riot in mass. That's the reason why they assured and allayed everyone's fears in Russia at the beginning of the war by saying that conscripts and mobilization would not occur or be used in this war. And we can now see that they're starting to backtrack, and now we can see that the Russian state TV is starting to talk about how strong the Russian government is. It's never been stronger before, and that kind of wordage is not directed at anyone rather than the public. And that's not to allay anyone's fears that the war is going poorly. It's to, once again, kind of subliminally reinforce the message: anything you try and do against the state will be pointless, as we're going to put it down immediately, because the government has never been stronger before, and you'll be a little ant crushed under our boot if it goes that way. That's kind of the message that's underlying what the Russian state TV is saying. And so I would have to entirely back the idea that they are getting ready for some kind of mass revolts or riots going on in Russia, if the Russians actually do go through with mass mobilization and then using those conscripts in the war. And so with that, I hope I addressed that poll fairly well too. And with that, if we have any more, we'll hear them. And if not, we'll move straight into the questions.
So that was our last poll for the moment, but one will be going up very soon. So moving into our super chats, up first, we have a very generous $150 super chat from Mark, who says, if Putin can decide parts of Ukraine belong to Russia, can the USA decide Russia belongs to them after the CIA runs a referendum?
Well, Mark, first off, I thank you for the massive amount of support. It helps this channel keep on running, and it helps me to have caffeine rushes like I'm having right now, which is very bad because I'm probably not going to get any sleep. But moving on from that, to answer that question, if Putin holds these fake referendums, which we aren't covering in today's news because we're waiting for the actual results to see if that does follow through before we report on it, but if they do that and they say that those parts of Ukraine are now part of Russia, no one in the world is going to formally recognize that as part of the Russian Federation. I think the only countries that would probably be Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, and maybe North Korea. Well, of course, North Korea, but who really cares about those countries? They don't really have a lot of weigh-in. So, by and large, I'm trying to think about this. I don't think, of course, it's a good idea to think that the CIA could hold fake referendums in Russia and then the U.S. could take it, but there's a lot of diplomatic complications that, of course, come with that one. But still, speaking about the Ukrainian territory and the Russians trying to hold referendums there, I don't think it'll amount to much of anything because no one's going to legitimize it. No one's going to say that that's the way it is. The United States will refuse to say that the Russians do control that territory, and the Ukrainians will still push the Russians off of it. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the massive support to this channel. You help us to keep this thing running, so that way we can do face reveals like we did last night and actually get to 100,000 subs. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support, and I hope we are able to answer that question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right. And yes, thank you very much for that very generous support. And up next, we have a $100 donation from Ron Anderson, who says, Matt, before the reveal, your voice made me picture you in the Old West wearing a nice clean suit, standing on the porch of a business, probably as a lawyer. Seeing cemented that thought. You also look like the lead singer for an 80s band, Spandau Ballet.
Let's
pull that up, Enforcer. I need to know what that is.
EAU.
Ballet.
Spandau Ballet. Let's check this out. Images. Let's look at these folks.
Oh
I mean,
my
you
God.
kind of look like the middle guy.
Somewhat. I think I look more like the actor that
That Matthew
Matthew
Broderick.
Broderick.
Yeah, I think.
Yes.
Now I gotta say, everyone, I don't know about y'all, but Matthew is literally a spinning image of Matthew Broderick as a younger person. Mother Matthew, Broderick. Oh, mother. It's freaking weird. I mean, let me go actually find an older picture of him. That's too young. There's like a gold right here. That's literally Matthew. It's so freaking weird. I can't even mentally process that. That's just freaking. That throws me off. Especially this one, is he got the same hair part and everything.
Did he fall off?
I don't know. I don't know if Matthew Broderick fell off. I don't think.
Oh, I see people saying one hit wonder. So apparently, this was at his prime.
Apparently so. Someone said Tobey Maguire. Who's? I'm sorry, everyone. We don't really know a lot
That's the
about
guy for Spider-Man.
Tobey Maguire.
I think.
Yeah. I don't think. Nah, I don't think he looks like Matthew. Nah. I mean, like, yeah, he doesn't. Sadly, I gotta say, he doesn't look like Matthew, but Matthew Broderick looks like Matthew. It's. Oh man, I never thought I'd see the day. That's just the weirdest thing. But with that, thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support. Sadly, we didn't really see anyone in Spandau Ballet that looks a lot like Matthew. But of course, thank you so much for the support. And thank you for throwing that in, because we've been getting a lot of input on who looks like what. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And yes, thank you very much, Ron, for the kind words and the support. And up next, I think this is our last one of the segment. We have a $60 donation from Joe, who says, I've been on and off lately, but miss catching y'all on the regular. Always support your good deeds. Keep yelling, fellas, and all the best. American Made, JKB, and Joe.
Well, I thank you so much for the massive amount of support, Joe. And also, thank you so much for supporting our good deeds and also the kind words as well. It means a lot to us, and of course, it helps the channel to keep on running. But kind words are always greatly appreciated, and we've gotten loads of kind words over the past 24 hours or so, and I'm glad that a lot of people enjoyed the face reveal and still continue to return to this channel to listen to the nightly news. And so with that, I thank you so much once again, Joe, and also JKB for the kind regards as well. And with that, we have now rounded out this question segment, and we're going to be moving on into the next segment of news. If you have thrown in a super chat tonight, we will get around to all of them. I don't say that often anymore, but just in case if you are new here tonight, we do get around to every single super chat before the end of the stream. We also get around to live chats as well. You do not have to pay to have a question answered, but because the super chatters keep our stream alive, because that's really the only way we keep going, you know, is of course through their support. We always answer their questions first, because without them, we wouldn't be able to answer anyone's questions. And so with that, we're now moving into the northeastern Kharkiv area and past the city of Kharkiv, where nothing happened today, but near the area of Kupiansk, we did see that some Russian armored personnel carriers were hit by artillery. And so with that, here's the video. Of course, we got to mute it, but we see two Russian APCs real quick. Actually, let's go back here. What's going on here? What is that? I can't tell what this is, but it hits a Russian APC further down the road and it explodes. And so with that, that's the end of the video. And pretty interesting to see that whatever that was, according to the caption, it's a Ukrainian airborne assault force that did this attack, but I don't know what kind of like object or vehicle they had down there that fired onto the Russian vehicle. Very interesting video, but it's great to see that they were able to knock out the Russian tank once again. And so with that, we are moving on into the next bit of news further down the Kupiansk front, and notice once again that the entirety of the Kupiansk front, now that it's reached the Oskil River, has fallen silent again, as there's really no way for either side to engage each other well over this large reservoir. In most places, it appears to be over a mile wide. And so, with that in mind, it's really difficult for either side to effectively fight each other. And so this area will largely fall stagnant. We'll see other areas start to surge in prevalence as the war continues on. With that, we're now moving beyond the Oskil River Reservoir and down past the cave monastery and towards Liman, where today we saw that Ukrainian artillery has now once again gotten within striking distance of Liman and is starting to blast Russian forces that are within the area of the town. And so, here's the video. Of course, we got to mute it because of copyrighted music, but we can see that the 44th Brigade is once again raining down accurate fire onto the Russians, again making sure to knock out as many vehicles as possible. We can see the Russians moving around in a tree line and going for a small stroll. Now we can see the artillery coming down right on top of them. And it looks like it may have hit their little outpost in there, or maybe a vehicle. I can't really tell what that was. We can now see what appears to be an MTLB in the tree line, as well as a second MTLB. And now white smoke is coming out of the tree, showing us that there may be some sort of ammunition fire occurring in there. Artillery is now raining down once more. And now we can see that they've hit something fairly well as it's going up in a ball of flame. The black pillar of smoke is now rising out of the tree line, letting us know whatever went up in a ball of flame was a Russian vehicle, and it's now been destroyed. Getting a better look at it now, and it looks like it may be another MTLB, although we can't really tell too well because of the trees. And so with that, that's the end of the video, and it's great to see that once again, the 44th Artillery Brigade is raining down accurate fire in the area of Liban and helping to destroy Russian vehicles and forces, and hopefully allow the Ukrainian frontline troops to retake that city soon. With that, we're now moving on down to the area of Ozerne, where unfortunately we saw that Russian incendiaries were used and blanketed the entire village on film. Of course, incendiary weapons being used in civilian areas is a war crime, and here, once again, we can see a clear evidence of a war crime being committed by the Russians. So with that, that's the end of the video, and once again, more evidence of Russian war crimes, and hopefully the Russians who pulled off this white phosphorus attack, this incendiary attack, regardless of what kind of incendiary it was, will be held accountable and will serve time or even a harsher punishment in Ukrainian hands. With that, we're now going to be moving on from the village of Ozerne and Liman, and speaking of the frontline situation here, we haven't seen a massive amount of changes. From what we know, the Ukrainians are still continuing smaller pushes in this area, but we don't know exactly what kind of progress they have made or where exactly they are right now. So these front lines are a very broad estimate, and we will be waiting on more news to see if the Ukrainians start to succeed like they did back in the day. However, we saw from the Russian side on day 209 that one of their tanks got hit dead on by an ATGM in the area of Lysychansk, and notice the tank's reaction. This is the first time I didn't see the crew bail out as soon as an ATGM hit them, but you could tell it was a pretty panicked reaction. So, here's the video. We can see the Russian tank sitting in the wide open on a field, and now rolling forward. Ooh! Ho ho ho! When you see the tank stop, and as soon as it stops, an ATGM slams into its side. Now you can see the driver, probably in a daze, backing up the tank at full speed. Believe it or not, Matthew, but that's actually the reverse speed for a T-72 at maximum.
You're kidding.
Yeah, the T-72s only have one reverse gear, and they can only go at the fastest around 3 miles per hour at full reverse. And so this guy is putting pedal to the metal to try and get out of here, but it looks like what's his name? I don't know. I can't make pop references.
So
so
it's not going to be pulling a J turn anytime soon.
Oh no, that's as fast as it can go right there. Someone just said I look like Johnny Depp. How in the world do I look like Johnny Depp? We now see the tanks finally turned around after almost a whole half minute of going in full reverse, which is like 1 mile an hour. And now it's taking off with its back facing the enemy, which is, of course, a terrible thing to do. Also, if you'll notice in the distance, we can actually get a good idea of a geolocation here. When the camera zooms in, you can actually see Verkno-Kamyanka, also known as the Lysychansk oil refinery, in the distance. And if we look at that on Google Maps, it is unmistakable. And that lets us know that that is in the area. So let me find Verkno-Kamyanka. I believe if we look at this map, it's down near Zolotarivka. So we need to find Zolotarivka. Let's see here. Zolotarivka. Where in the world's that? Wait, we're looking at Luhansk. What in the world am I doing? We need to move up here. There it is. And you can see when I put us down on the street view, if there is a street view, and apparently there isn't. So we'll go over here real quick. Maybe we can see it from there. All right. So now we just got to find it. There it is. You can see the same stacks in the distance, and when you look at this video, you can see it from a different perspective, letting us know that this did occur somewhere around the Lysychansk area, because you can see such an identifiable landmark as the Lysychansk oil refinery. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of news, and it's great to see that the Ukrainians blasted the Russians, and the Russians had to turn tail and run. With that, we're now going to be moving towards the area of Zolotarivka, where we saw that the 73rd Brigade destroyed a Russian BMD-4. A lot of people keep on saying, like, everyone says the same thing about you, Matthew. They all say you look like Matthew Broderick, but it seems like the consensus on what I look like is different, because now I see someone saying I look like Everyday Astronaut.
Who's that?
Real quick, while we watch this Russian tank get incinerated, we'll go pull up Everyday Astronaut. Everyday Astronaut. And I'll let you make the judgment, Matthew. So let's see, images.
Everyday Astronaut.
He's a
rings a
YouTuber.
bell. Oh, I know who this guy is. Yeah, I've watched a few of his videos.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy. I like what he does with space. He engages a whole load of people on space exploration, which of course is great. He's known for the whole orange suit thing that he does, and also he's gotten really involved with NASA, but someone said I look like him, and what do you think, Matthew? What's the consensus here?
I mean, somewhat.
Kind of. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, you know, just me being me. I don't see it. I honestly think his chin line's a lot more pronounced. He also has a beard. But, you know, I guess it is what it is. I don't know. A lot of people are saying, no. Someone said he looks like Goose. Who's Goose? Goose? Top Gun? Do I look like that?
I mean, somewhat. I mean, I don't really know what to say. I say somewhat.
Chad Alendre said I look like Steven Seagal. Don't you dare. No.
Oh, man, that's like an insult.
Oh, God, that's an insult. Anyways, let's go back to the video before we go too far down that rabbit hole. And let's just watch this Russian tank get incinerated somewhere in the area of Lysychansk. We see the bomblet explode on top of the BMD. And with that, that's the end of the video, and it's great to see that the Ukrainians were once again knocking out Russian armored personnel carriers and tanks in the Lysychansk area. We're now going to be moving on further down the line. While we have gotten news in this area, it isn't suggesting major amounts of frontline change. As far as we know, the front lines are remaining stable in this area as the Ukrainians have continued to hold the Lysychansk oil refinery and Bila Orivka well into the past month. We're now going to be moving down towards the area of Soledar, where we have gotten the return of an absolute legend. The 93rd, the Fighting 93rd, the famous unit that held off the entire Balaklia to Izium area for the longest time, has now been spotted in the area of Soledar, hitting the Russians. And so with that, here's the video. When you see some Russians on the move in this video. We can now see that things are not going well for the Russians as the 93rd Brigade is once again exhibiting their best qualities, which is firepower and accuracy. With that, that's the end of the video. And it's pretty interesting. You see that the 93rd has now moved into the area of Soledar and is inflicting decent amounts of losses onto the Russians there. Of course, the 93rd makes a name for itself wherever it goes, and honestly, based off of the performance of all the units we've seen so far, they are second in line to the Azov Battalion during the Battle of Mariupol and their gallantry that they showed during that siege. That pretty much famous siege at this point, where the Ukrainians held the city beyond everyone's belief and continued to defy expectations day by day as the city continued to hold. With that, we're now going to be moving on down to the area of Donetsk, and of course, we have no news from here today. The Donetsk front is largely in its 2014 borders. We haven't seen a lot of changes, of course, like I say every time, because this is where the Maginot Line exists in Ukraine. Both sides are heavily defended. It's almost impossible to get any kind of frontline changes here, and so we'll most likely not see any well into the future until one side either breaks through the lines in another area. It most likely will not happen here. We're now going to be moving down into the southern front as well, where once again, we have no news to report. By and large, once again, the front lines remaining stable, and this appears to be an area that neither side has been interested in heavily. We haven't seen a lot of offensive actions from the Russians trying to secure any areas north of the front lines that they hold, and we haven't seen any counterattacks from the Ukrainians either. And so, for as far as we know, it will remain this way well into the future. Finally, we're now going to be moving into our Kherson area and covering the news here and the speech from President Zelensky. But before we do that, we have no international news, and so it is now time to address our polls again and also answer 3 questions from the chat. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
Wow, and that was very fast. So, folks, entering our second to last question segment of the stream, we only have one poll to address thus far. And the question was, do you think that Russia may fully mobilize its military in the near future? It looks like 63% said yes, it's very possible. 20% said maybe, I'm not sure, and 18% said no, not likely. And in the Enforcer, before I give my opinion on the matter, I want to make sure that this is correct. Russia has said that they are keeping all able-bodied men in their country, right?
Yes, that is correct.
So I think that is enough to indicate that they may have something of that sort up their sleeve. But Enforcer, I'll let you take it from here.
In my opinion, the only reason that laws like that are made are in preparation of something. You don't just go through the effort of writing a law into being without any kind of idea or thought of then following through with what that law says. There would be no reason for the Russians to forbid able-bodied military-age men from leaving the country if they weren't expecting to draw them into military service soon. And so in that regard, I would have to say the whole reason that that's going on is probably because the Russians are preparing to mobilize. And so we need to keep a good eye on that. We'll, of course, be keeping a very watchful eye on that situation and seeing if the Russians actually do break their promise to the Russian public and begin to mobilize conscripts from just the general public to then serve in pretty much this never-ending embarrassment for the Russians. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And that's actually our last poll. But Enforcer, I saw somebody say something interesting in the live chat. I just forgot that Edward Snowden is actually still over in Russia in asylum. I wonder how he is doing right now.
I wonder, Edward Snowden, how's he doing? Let's see. We'll click on his Wikipedia and read it real quick.
He must feel really awkward at this point.
Yeah, you know, he must be feeling kind of a little odd. Let's see here. Let's scroll down. Come on, criminal charges, civil lawsuit, asylum in Russia. Amendment to Russian. Let's see, an amendment to Russian nationality law allowing foreigners to obtain Russian citizenship without renouncing came into force. In November 2020, Snowden announced that he and his wife, who was expecting their son in late December, were applying for dual U.S.-Russian citizenship in order to not be separated from him in his era of pandemics and closed borders. Interesting. So apparently, from what we're seeing here on Wikipedia, he may become a citizen of the Russian Federation, and so there's not really a lot of questionability there, rather than him being an American. And honestly, I bet you he's probably hailed as a hero within Russia for what he did. I don't know, but moving on, what do you think, Matthew, actually?
Oh, what do I think about him being in Russia?
Yeah, what do you think's going on with him over there? Because it seems like there's a little bit of leeway, a little bit of a creative license there.
I'm really not sure what he'd be really doing in Russia at this point. I just know that from seeing videos, it appears he sort of stays holed up in an apartment in Moscow. But I can imagine that he is not liked around Russia simply because of the hatred toward America at this point. So he's probably in hiding, would be my guess. I'm not really sure what the details are around his asylum. I would really have to know more details before I gave a really detailed opinion.
All right. And so with that, I don't really have anything else to add to it either because honestly don't really know a lot about his situation in Russia. I know what he did before he went there, but don't really know about what's going on there. So with that, I hope we were able to address that question from the live chat. Really interesting one that I never thought about. And so we are now on to answering questions from the chat. But before we do, I actually just saw someone say this. This is about the 10th time I've seen it. I look like Charlie Sheen with a goatee. Do I look like that, Matthew?
No.
All right. I thought so too. And so with that, we are now on to the first question of this segment.
All right. And the first one of this segment goes to Mark, who puts in another $75 donation. Very generous of you, Mark, and thank you very much for that. He says, what would you guys reveal for $1,000? Huh.
That's an interesting question, Mark, and I thank you for the massive amount of support. But I don't think we would reveal anything more than our face, regardless of the amount of money. It's just a little I don't know. I wouldn't sadly at $1,000 I would just do the exact same thing probably. And so with that
that had to be a joke.
Yeah, what
that had to be.
That had to have been a joke. So with that, I thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support, and I thank you so much for an interesting question. But of course, it would just be my face again. And so with that, you're on to the next one, and thank you once again. Wait a minute, hang on. Hang on. We're getting more things from the chat, and this one is hilarious, Matthew. Someone said a young Robert Downey Jr. Now, I already know I don't look like that. Let's see. Young Robert Downey Jr. We're just putting this one in for the laughs because I know I definitely don't look like that. Do I? Yes or no?
What picture is that from?
I don't know, but it's a weird one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think honestly that looks a little bit more like Matthew.
No.
Yeah, I mean like that one.
Absolutely not.
I don't know.
Maybe that one somewhat. I don't know.
Maybe this one. That kind of looks like you.
He's thinking really hard there in that picture.
Yeah, but anyways, with that, going down that rabbit hole again, we are now on to the next one.
And by the way, Mark clarified and said, yes, it was definitely a joke, guys. Please keep going. So he clarified there real quick.
All right, and so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and next up, I want to give a big shout out to J.K. James for putting in a $200 super chat, but without a comment, sadly. But thank you so much for that very generous support, and the Enforcer has a few words to add himself.
And thank you so much, Jack James, for the massive amount of support.
J.K. James.
J.K. is not Jack?
J and K, it's like J-A-Y, and then K, James.
You know, I thought it was like tire, you know, like how it's spelled in Britain, like that?
Like a tire.
Yeah, like a tire, you know, like also it's a city in Lebanon. Yeah, I like my tires to be replaced, please. They just pull the city of Lebanon off the map and replace it with a different one. But anyways, I thought it was kind of like tire. I thought it was like Jack, like with an I, but it was a Y instead. I don't know. Answer that question for us in the live chat, JK or Jack. I don't know which one it is. But I thank you so much for the massive amount of support. You did even throw in a question or a comment, and that's honestly crazy to me because when people throw in massive super chats, I would love to be able to address something rather than just the support, like answer a question or thank you for kind words, but the support says a lot, and it says that you're enjoying this channel and you want us to keep on going. And so I thank you so much once again for the massive support. It helps us out a lot, and I hope that we are able to keep on going with these live streams well into the future. Of course, the Lee Spring Army seems to be as strong now as ever before, and so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again, J.K. James, for the massive amount of support.
All right. And next up, we have a $50 super chat from Spencer Enoxon, who says, I'll start it off, LOL.
And thank you for the support. It's Matt Knox?
Spencer Enoxon.
Why in the world did I hear Matt Knox from that? Spencer Knox. I thank you for the massive amount of
It's the
support.
caffeine.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, y'all, I gotta tell y'all, the caffeine, I had a nitro cold brew earlier today to try and stay awake during college, and I thought that one had kind of worn off at this point, so I started drinking another one, and now I feel like I'm going through caffeine overdose right now. So,
Enforcer, you had 2?
Yes, I did.
Oh, that is way too much caffeine. That's dangerous.
Yes, it probably is, but I was trying to make sure I could get through this stream okay, and right now I am burning hot over here, and I'm sweating, although the fan is going full speed behind me, which tells you how bad it is. But anyways, moving on from that, I do thank you so much once again for the support, and also, you were actually the first super chat of the night, so that's what it meant, but I do thank you so much for the massive support and helping this channel to keep on going, so that way I can try and overdose on caffeine. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once. Well, actually, I think that was the last one of this segment, wasn't it, Matthew?
Let's see here. I think it might have been. Yeah, that is the last one of the segment. But real quick, I'm going to go over this poll while it is top of the mind. And it looks like the question was, is Snowden a hero or traitor? Now, me and the Enforcer are probably going to have to reserve our judgment on this one because it could dive into politics potentially. But it looks like 54% of you said he's a traitor and 46% said he's a hero. And like I said, that kind of delves into politics somewhat. So I'm going to reserve judgment. But Enforcer, do you have anything you want to add?
Fortunately not, because I do think that one may be getting a little bit into politics. And so we'll just leave that up to the live chat. But unfortunately, I won't be able to comment on it because of our no politics rule. And I do feel like that will kind of be weighing into politics somewhat. And so with that, we are going to be, everyone keeps, this is interesting. Before we move on into the news again, everyone, Matthew, does not have a consensus on what I look like. Everyone says that you look like the same thing, like Matthew Broderick. But everyone keeps saying different things about me, and I'm getting interested into who these people look like. So now I've seen Gerard Butler. Gerard?
Enforcer, are you disturbed?
I am kind of disturbed.
You seem disturbed.
No one seems to know what I look like. I do not look like that. No, you got high goals there. You got high expectations. No, that's not it. I'm sorry. So with that, we're now done with the question segment, and now I just gotta say, Matthew, it's weird because everyone, as soon as they saw you, everyone said Matthew Broderick. That's almost been the only one I've seen. But with me, they're like Steven Seagal, like anyone and everyone. It's really odd in a way. But anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on from this and on into our last news segment, starting off in Kherson, with 209 days news coming first near the area of Viskapilia. Of course, we don't know if this is in the exact area, but we have a general idea that this is in the Kherson area. So we can see some Ukrainians getting in a firefight with the Russians from the Ukrainian perspective.
Подожди. Отстать. Отстать. Все, стоять. Стреляй по нем нахуй!
See the Ukrainians getting in a firefight in the streets at a somewhat closer range.
Тихо, ты там бегай по хате.
We now hear an RPG being fired in front of them.
Куда побег?
Он вперед, вдоль дома побежал.
Давай, хуярь!
You now see them laying down fire, and also notice this, Matthew. This is really interesting. They're all using M4s.
That is interesting.
That is very interesting, because at the beginning of this war, it would look, almost all of these guns would have been AK-74s, but now we can see that as it's continued to progress, the U.S. hasn't only been sending over heavier equipment, it's been sending over massive amounts of small arms, enough at this point that M4s are starting to replace AKs on the battlefield as the standard rifle. We have seen M4s being used by common infantrymen now, including these.
БК, блядь, храни трошки, ебать! Замес нахуй! Все, хватит нахуй.
But that's the end of the video, and it's great to see that the Ukrainians are starting to use M4s on a higher and larger scale. Of course, y'all know my opinion. I, of course, think the M4 is better than the AK-47. I think that it will, that of course outpaces Eastern technology in small arms by leaps and bounds, and it's good to see that the Ukrainians are starting to use M4s en masse, and also nice to see that they're using them in their small offensive operations down here in the Kherson area. With that, we're now going to be moving towards the area of Velika Oleksandriivka, where we saw that the 28th Brigade was hitting the Russians again today. Also, yep, I just heard it. And now we can see the Ukrainian moving forward with some kind of an RPG or an AT-4. I can't really tell you for certain. For some reason, the AT weapons get me mixed up sometimes. We now see him aiming the RPG, and now he's fired it. We can't really see what he fired it at, but he flung that thing. Now he's grabbing his rifle again, and he's running back into the bush. You now see him advancing in another direction, and that's the end of the video. Really interesting to see. Also, thank you everyone for correcting it. Everyone's saying that that's a M72 or a LAW. So with that, I thank you all for correcting that. And it's great to see that the 28th Mechanized Brigade is engaging the Russians, and those two units that we've seen so far aren't the only ones. On day 209, again, we saw that these units were being supported once again by the HIMARS as they continue to attack infrastructure that the Russians are using behind the lines. You can see those launches in the distance as they light up the night sky. And with that, that's the end of the video, and it's great to see that the Ukrainians continue to use the HIMARS anywhere and everywhere they can. And also, recently, Matthew, it's started to seem like they're using them a lot more than before. It seems like the United States may be sending them so much ammunition that they can use these things liberally without really having to care about the conservation of ammo. And so with that,
Yeah,
we're now going to
like
be... Matthew took so long...
And Enforcer, you were breaking up so bad, and you went in like hyperspeed for like 2 seconds, and then it finally caught up.
That's why he was silent. I was sitting there for a second. I was like, why is he not saying anything? I was like, we'll just move on. But anyways, of course, pretty crazy to see. And with that, we're now going to be moving on into this area. This is not the area where this happened. It happened in the Kherson area, but we don't know exactly where. But we did see a Ukrainian Humvee operating in Kherson, apparently being used by the Ukrainian Special Forces. So, without further ado, here's a video of them firing a .50 caliber off of a Humvee. Now, this guy is treating it like a machine gun. Hey, it's a machine gun. Okay. This guy's just laying down the fire. And it's really it's really interesting to see. And there's also a part 2 to this video as well. So here's the part 2 of that same Humvee in action from a different perspective, this time from the gunner's perspective. We can see this thing moving at a blistering speed across an open field. We now see him firing at the Russians in the distance. I see him adjusting the turret. Firing it off, and you see the massive spray that he fires. He just starts firing off the entire 9 yards. God, what a machine gun. How well is it maintained? It didn't even jam once, firing off that entire belt, which is honestly
Yeah.
unbelievable. I have fired 50 calibers before, and it almost seems like they would jam every 7 rounds or 10 rounds or so. There would at least be a jam in even a small amount like that. But this guy fired off an entire belt of it and didn't even get a single jam. That was insane to watch. And also a huge credit to the Ukrainians and how they're maintaining these 50 calibers, because that, as far as I know, is almost unheard of on the 50 calibers I've shot.
Rip barrel.
Yeah, rip the barrel. The barrel is probably bending downwards at this point from being fired that much in such a short amount of time. But then again, the 50 caliber, in case if you don't know, Matthew, you can replace the barrel on it like a light bulb. You just screw it out of like a little, like a screw socket, and then you just screw the next barrel in. So it's a pretty easy barrel to replace, but I don't think anyone will be...
They're going to need one.
Oh yeah, they are going to need one, and I don't think anyone's going to want to touch that for the next hour or so, because it's going to be so hot you can cook eggs and bacon on top of it. So with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next clip further down the line, once again from day 210, where we saw a Russian tank get hit with another ATGM. Oh, it's got music. We see the drone looking out into the distance for the Russian tank, and we can see it right there. And now it's been hit, and it's continuing to roll for a little bit. We once again see what appears to be a replay. We can once again see the round hit. And you can actually see the round skirt off near the top of the turret into the distance. You can see the streak of it right there. We now see it again in even slower motion. And we see the plume of smoke rising up as the tank begins to listlessly drive forward, most likely out of control. And with that, that's the end of the video. And it's great to see that the Ukrainians were able to knock out another Russian tank again with an ATGM. We don't know what kind, but regardless of the kind, it did pack the punch and it did inflict the damage. And so moving on back again into day 209 near the area of Alexandriivka. Once again, the marker is not entirely accurate, but we did see the Russians get hit by an M777. And so here's the video. When you see the Russian vehicle highlighted in red, moving across the field somewhat quickly into the tree line near these houses.
And here's the boys getting ready.
Yeah, and there they go. They're starting to pound away, and the artillery is landing right around that APC, or that tank. We can't really tell what it is at this point, but it looks like they already got a dead-on hit. The tank is on fire. We now see the Ukrainians once again collecting their drone, which watch
wow,
that.
That's a big Mavic.
Yeah, that's a big daddy, isn't it? This thing would be used for, like, filming a movie.
That's like the industrial one. I think it's M30 or something like that. The one with the zoom and all these extra features on it.
Yeah, I mean, like, the Ukrainians are starting to really kit out their drone forces, and it looks like that may be one of the things that they're personally investing in as much as they can. And I think it's because they're starting to see the prevalence and importance of drones on the field and how valuable they really are. And so I guess they're starting to see that shelling out maybe an extra few $1,000s for a single drone could really mean a massive difference in the long run. So it's really cool to see. And of course, Matthew pointed out it's a massive drone, and it definitely is. It looks like the Big Daddy version of our DJI Mavic. We can now see them lifting it off again. That thing is just huge. Like, honestly, I think the Russians would pick that thing up on a radar. It's so big. We now see it spotting Russians once again in the tree line. We can see the M777 firing again. And the artillery comes right down onto those Russians.
They are crazy accurate.
They are.
Like, that baffles me every time.
It's insane to see the accuracy that they're able to get with even the Soviet artillery systems, and with the M777, it gets even better. Look at that. Like, that was a dead-on hit. Again, now we can see the black smoke of death coming from the vehicle. And another one. They almost never miss.
I'm sure somebody that shot artillery can tell us in the live chat how difficult or easy this is to master, but I can't even wrap my mind around how they do this.
And I gotta say, it is honestly unbelievable. That's about the 4th shot we've watched hit that exact same tank dead on top of it again. And it's just unbelievable to think that the Ukrainians are capable of doing this kind of stuff consistently. We now see the tank, of course, still cooking off after the 4 rounds slammed into it and made sure to quadruple kill it. And with that, that is the end of this video. And once again, impressive to see that the Ukrainians are still knocking out Russians with such deadly accuracy with their artillery pieces. And so with that, we're now moving on to our last bit of news from the Kherson front, where we saw a large Russian convoy also being hit by Ukrainian artillery. Actually, correction. Apparently, this is a Ukrainian convoy under Russian artillery. So we can see what appears to be some armored personnel carriers and trucks as well. It's actually a pretty sizable convoy. We can now see one of the vehicles was hit somewhat. It looks like the crew was able to abandon, however. And we can now see this large convoy continuing to be on the move. And it appears that they're showing off the same damaged APC again. Yep, it's the same one from multiple different angles. We can now see another armored personnel carrier is pulled alongside it to screen for it as the crew abandons the vehicle. And that looks like the only vehicle that was hit, and they're trying to make as big a deal as possible about it. And so with that, that's the end of the video. And of course, the Ukrainian forces continue to valiantly fight to try and retake this land and hold all of Ukraine that is in jeopardy if they were to sit there and not defend. And so with that, as the situation in the Kherson front has remained unchanged, the front lines also have not moved, at least as far as the information we have gotten. We are still trying to respect operational security as best as we can in this area, and so for now, of course, even if there was any information we could report on, we wouldn't be able to state exactly what is happening down there. But of course, I hope that everyone wishes the best of luck to the Ukrainian armed forces who continue this heroic struggle to defend their nation, and hopefully we will see Kherson retaken within the next few months. And so with that, we finally reached the end of the news for tonight. And so we're now going to be moving up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Zelensky. And after we cover that speech, we'll then be moving on into the question segment for the rest of the night. And so, without further ado, here is the video of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Президент України.
Шановні колеги, пані та панове, я вдячний за можливість взяти участь у цьому засіданні.
And 1 second, everyone. It actually looks like President Zelensky's speech was put in Ukrainian subtitles. So let me see real quick if we can actually change those subtitles to that. We want to go to English. Wow, look. I'm Mr. Techno Guru, man. So with that, here's the speech again from the start.
Президент України.
Шановні колеги, пані та панове, я вдячний за можливість взяти участь у цьому засіданні, відзначаючи той факт, що засідання відбувається на полях Генеральної асамблеї ООН, я згадую один з фундаментальних документів сучасної міжнародно-правової системи. Це Загальна декларація прав людини, 30 статей про найнагальніші речі для кожної людини з мільярдів людей, які жили, живуть і ще житимуть на нашій планеті. Я процитую зараз статтю 25. Кожна людина має право на такий життєвий рівень, включаючи їжу, одяг, житло, медичний догляд та необхідне соціальне обслуговування, який є необхідним для підтримання здоров'я і добробуту її самої та її сім'ї, і право на забезпечення в разі безробіття, хвороби, інвалідності, вдівства, старості чи іншого випадку втрати засобів до існування через незалежні від неї обставини. Це дуже важливе визначення права, а не привілею, права, а не фортуни, права, а не примхи клімату, право на їжу, право на захист від голоду, право. Україна вважає це право невід'ємним для всіх людей, для всіх країн. Кожна людина у світі має бути позбавлена голоду і навіть його загрози. Кожна країна у світі має бути надійно захищена від голоду. А будь-яка держава, яка провокує голод, яка намагається зробити доступ до їжі якимось привілеєм, яка пробує поставити захист народів від голоду у залежність від посмішки фортуни чи милості якогось диктатора, така держава має отримувати від світу найжорсткішу реакцію. Реакцію як за застосування зброї масового ураження – хімічної, біологічної чи ядерної. Бо поширення голоду – це така ж аморальна і нелюдська зброя масового ураження, як поширення смертоносних бактерій чи радіації. Це позиція України. Це позиція нації, яка втратила мільйони людей внаслідок голодоморів. Тому ми відчуваємо особливо, що насправді означають слова «продовольча безпека». Що таке право на захист від голоду? Що таке право на їжу? Відчуваємо, чому це не привілей, чому це не має бути випадковістю і чому кожен, хто руйнує це право, повинен отримати жорстку відповідь. Тому ми докладаємо стільки зусиль, щоб відновити наш аграрний експорт. Це питання не тільки економіки для нас, це питання базових цінностей і поваги до життя як такого. За 8 місяців минулого року Україна експортувала майже 38 мільйонів тонн агропродукції. За 8 місяців цього року світовий ринок отримав вже майже на 10 мільйонів тонн менше. Мінус 10 мільйонів тонн нашого агроекспорту. Це плюс десятки мільйонів людей, що опинились на межі голоду чи голодують. І це лише початкові наслідки російської блокади наших портів, російських намагань ракетними ударами завадити нам будувати нову логістику експорту і аморальної політичної гри з коливаннями продовольчих цін. Росія повинна за це відповідати. Для чого їй це все було потрібно? Щоб нібито милостиво давати продовольство в обмін на суверенітет, в обмін на політичне підкорення, в обмін на уразливість багатьох африканських, азійських та європейських країн. Ось чому Росія хоче зробити захист від голоду не правом, а привілеєм. Їжу не невід'ємним правом, а тим, що потрібно випрошувати. Ми це категорично не сприймаємо. Ми проти цього послідовно боремось. Навіть в умовах повномасштабної війни ми допомагаємо нашу агропродукцію тим, хто не може самостійно забезпечити себе нею. І я хочу запевнити ООН, що Україна і надалі буде гарантом продовольчої програми ООН. Зокрема, ми вже допомагаємо Сомалі і Ефіопії, Африка, Азія, Європа, американський континент. Де б не було потрібно продовольство, ми готові експортувати і допомагати. І ми закликаємо вас до солідарності. Будьте солідарними з нами у притягненні Росії до відповідальності. Будьте солідарними з нами у тому, щоб гарантувати право будь-якої людини і будь-якої країни на захист від голоду. Право на їжу. Це право, а не привілей. Так має бути. Вірю, що ми з вами зможемо це гарантувати. Я дякую пану генеральному секретарю ООН Гутеррешу, дякую Туреччині, президенту Ердогану. Наша зернова експортна ініціатива працює стабільно. Я дякую усім українцям, кожній, хто перетворює нашу можливість гарантувати глобальну продовольчу безпеку на факт об'єктивної реальності. Я дякую всім вам за підтримку і за увагу. Слава Україні!
So with that, That is the end of the speech from President Zelensky today. It appears that he was actually addressing the Global Food Security Summit, and he did not make his normal nightly address. Apparently, this took the place of it. But still, it is great to hear from President Zelensky and to know that he continues to rally support around Ukraine the world over. And so with that, we are completed with our news segment for the night, while my caffeine overdose is still going on. Of course, if you have enjoyed tonight, please make sure to subscribe. We run these streams every single day of the week, except for Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, where we cover the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine. And so, of course, thank you all so much for watching, and we're now going to be moving on into the question segment, where we're going to answer everyone's super chats for the night, and we're also going to answer as many live chats as we can as well. And so with that, take it away, Matthew.
All right. And entering our final question segment of the night, we only have one poll to address during this segment, simply because I got so busy with everything else. So the question from this poll is, how are the Ukrainians so accurate with artillery? It looks like 61% of you, it said it's a mixture of smart munitions and math and skill. 21% said a lot of math and skill, and 13% said smart munitions, while only 5% said neither option. So very interesting. It appears that all three are involved. But Enforcer, what are your thoughts?
I would actually have to say that that I believe Ukrainian accuracy largely comes down to the crew that is manning the piece, not necessarily the piece. I know that kind of sounds weird because, of course, the M777 uses precision-guided munitions, but at the beginning of the war, we saw the Ukrainians using old Soviet D-20s and D-30s, and they were getting about the same level of accuracy out of those that they're getting out M777s. So while the M777 does add a little bit of a redundant feature, ensuring that if the crew is off of their aiming by a little, the round will still hit, I still think it was largely up to the crews that made the pieces accurate. And so I would actually have to answer that I think it was the training of the crews and not necessarily the piece or the smart munitions. What do you think?
I have no idea, to be totally honest. That's why I asked the question, because I had no idea.
Oh, well, I guess that is what it is. And also I saw you deleting a bot at the exact same time, so that's probably why. But with that, I hope I addressed that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and that was our only poll for the moment. So, moving into our super chat questions. Up first, we have a $50 donation from BC Skyman, who says, "Awesome face reveal. The Enforcers rock."
And thank you so much for the support, BC Skyman. Of course, you've been around forever, and I'm sure that you, along with a lot of people, have been wondering for a long time what we actually looked like. And a lot of people have said and wondered, what do these guys actually look like? We've never seen their faces, and I hope that y'all enjoyed that quick little look at us. I don't know if it'll be happening a lot in the future. It seems like y'all enjoyed it a lot, so maybe, I don't really know. We'll have to figure out how that works. We may have to make an entirely different show for it, because we can't do it as a live stream like this. The live streams that you're watching right now will have to stay this way for the rest of the war, because it would take a lot of hurdles and effort to try and turn it into something like that. And also, I feel like it would kind of sully the Ukraine war news and make it more about us, more like a react channel. And that's not really what I was going for at the start. But we may make more videos where we are actually in them and you can see us, since a lot of y'all enjoyed that. So with that, I thank you so much for the support, BC Skyman. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And of course, thank you for so much for being an Old Guard Lee Spring Army member. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right. And up next, we have a $30 donation from White Lightning 777, who says, "I hope the CIA gets involved with anti-war protesters within Russia. A civil war in Russia will force them out of Ukraine." And Enforcer, real quick, is the CIA one of these topics that YouTube gets us over?
I honestly cannot tell you. One second. The YouTube...
Because I don't want to say something and get us in trouble.
Let me pull this up real quick.
We might play it on the safe side.
We might want to play it on the safe side here, but I did see that apparently the CIA has a YouTube channel. We won't be pulling that up on stream.
What do you know?
We won't be pulling that up on stream, but that may be a touchy topic that YouTube doesn't like. YouTube actually doesn't like several things, and some of them are actually domestic, not international. So, unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to answer that one, just because we want to play on the safe side with YouTube. We might get in trouble with them. But I do thank you so much for the support, and of course, thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. We will try and answer that once we get a good idea as to whether it's really safe or not. I don't know how YouTube reacts to that, but I feel like they may be pulling out the baseball bats right now and getting ready to pop my kneecaps out of socket. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support.
Oh man, I hate I couldn't weigh in on that one. I had something good to say. But anyways, thanks for the support, White Light and 777. And moving on to our next super chat, we have a $25 donation from Compound David, who says, can Ukraine convert their nuclear power to tactical nuclear weapon pointed at Moscow for leverage?
That is an excellent question. Ukraine is one of the few countries in the world that uses nuclear reactors and doesn't have nuclear weapons. Actually, let's pull this up. Nations that have nuclear power. Let's see if we can get a map of this. List of states with nuclear weapons. We want the ones with nuclear power. Well, that map isn't going to load resolution-wise. We don't want that one. We want the one that shows the nuclear power plants, dagnabbit. So let me back up real quick, and let's see if I can find it. Nuclear-powered countries. All right, so let's see which ones are nuclear. France, India, Pakistan, North Korea, Russia, the United States, Iran, maybe, we don't know. Let's see, China, the United Kingdom, and actually, surprisingly enough, there is a sizable amount of countries that have nuclear power that do not have nuclear weapons. And of course, one of them is Ukraine. Also, an interesting note, fun fact, South Africa actually did have nuclear weapons and gave them up in the 90s. Every single one of them voluntarily, which was the only kind of country, well, it was the only country in the world of its kind that actually gave up its entire nuclear arsenal, and actually had a decent one. It was something around 50 nuclear weapons that they gave up voluntarily. But still, Ukraine does have nuclear power, but I don't think they would have a nuclear an arms program or an industry that could convert the power plant's uranium-235 into weaponized uranium-235. I think there is a little bit of a difference in between the two. I think it may be an isotope difference, but I don't think Ukraine would have the logistics or the infrastructure to be able to create nuclear weapons out of some of their nuclear fuel. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. It's a great idea, but I just don't think it's possible for Ukraine. I think they would honestly have to get one from another country to be able to have one in time. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a $25 super chat from JFro, who says, definitely, the Enforcer and Enforcer Matt, you both look like Matthew Broderick and Charlie Sheen as they appear in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. The Enforcer, don't go getting that haircut in a hurry. Wink, wink.
Oh, Lord. Thank you for the support, J-Fro. And real quick, we're going to have to go look at Ferris Bueller's Day Off again. I'm going to have to see this Madame Tussauds Matthew again. So let's go look at this. All right. So apparently Charlie Sheen was in this movie, but who's Charlie Sheen? Is that Charlie Sheen? Hopefully not, because I don't think I'll look like that. But that is Matthew. On God, that's Matthew. That's freaking weird. Let's see. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Charlie Sheen. Let's take a look at this. I gotta solve this. Nah, I don't know. I mean, like, the square head, it's there. The goatee, I don't know. You'd have to put a goatee on that to convince me whether they actually looked at me or not, like me or not. But with that, I thank you for the support, J-Fro. And apparently now, okay, a lot of people are saying no. I was kind of thinking no too, but still, pretty nice compliment. It's the thought that counts. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, J-Fro. But I think it's unanimous tonight, regardless of whatever everyone says I look like. It is without a doubt, Matthew looks like Matthew Broderick. Matthew, I don't know why, but that's really thrown me off tonight. I can't think about you the same way again, because you look just like him.
That is crazy.
So with that,
Enforcer, I'm not far behind, am I?
In what regard?
like into talking because I hear you breaking up over there.
Oh no, you're not far behind at all. It's like a second or two lag, so it's no big deal.
And I see somebody in the live chat saying, you don't know who Charlie Sheen is. I actually did know who that was, but not because he was an actor. I remember seeing something about he was having a drug issue or something like that. That's how I heard about him, but that's the only way I've actually heard about that guy. I haven't seen him in any movies, which is really, really weird now that I think about it.
And also,
but anyways,
real quick, a lot of people keep on mentioning this, and I have to let y'all know again, just in case if y'all haven't heard me say the speech, Matthew and me, I never really got into pop culture or anything like that a lot, so we don't know a lot about movie references or actors from really any period in time, whether they be old actors or new. We really don't have an idea. Specifically me, I can't really list off a single actor or a single football, soccer, or basketball player. I really can't name off any of them. I just never really got into that stuff. And I kind of got into this, which is why I'm here reporting the news, is because instead of watching, like football or something, I would be reading about all kinds of random stuff and just eventually built up a pretty decent repertoire of knowledge, although it isn't complete. As you can see sometimes on stream, I do get things wrong. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, JFro. I hope that addressed the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $22 super chat from Dieter Herfert, who says, I like both in the video, from Australia, Queensland.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the support. And of course, I'm glad that you enjoyed both of us in our face reveal. Of course, I've seen a load of comments on Matthew in saying that he looks pretty freaking good. And honestly, considering he looks like Matthew Broderick, I can't really blame anyone because he's movie material at that rate. So it's great to know that everyone's enjoyed the face reveal. I'm glad that it was well received. And based off of the response to the face reveal, it is actually the most interactive video we've ever made in terms of likes, comments, and everything. So I'm glad to know that everyone did enjoy it and it didn't go the opposite direction. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And folks, I got to say this real quick. We were somewhat nervous. We weren't like, shaking or freaking out or anything like that, but we were nervous before that came out because we weren't sure how that was going to go. So we were so relieved to see it was received very well. Because we didn't know how it would go. We were just sort of like, oh no, let's see how this goes. And then all of a sudden the comments start rolling in that were good and positive. And we're like, phew, relief. But anyways.
Actually, to be honest with you, Matthew's trying to make it sound a lot more cool and relaxed than normal. Matthew was cool and relaxed until the 2-minute countdown started on the premiere. And then he went, oh God, oh man. And I was already going, oh God, oh man, for like the past 3 hours at that point. Because I was sitting there and I was like, oh man. I was like, it's going to go terribly. We look terrible. Like, people won't enjoy it. Maybe something won't carry well on camera. I was concerned about a million things because if y'all don't know, on YouTube, usually face reveals go poorly. And I had promised y'all a face reveal, and a promise is a promise, and I've never backed out of one. And so when we reached 100,000, I was like, oh crap, we actually have to follow through on this. And so we did one, but I was extremely nervous that it would go bad, but instead it went really good, which I'm really happy about. So with that, I hope that kind of addresses what happened behind the scenes there. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $21 super chat from Kathy Carr, who says, what does it mean that the Lend-Lease will begin in Ukraine? What exact weapons will be supplied that have not been supplied so far?
Well, some of the weapons that we have not provided so far have been main battle tanks like the M1A2 Abrams or the M1A1, considering that a lot of those were just retired by the U.S. Marine Corps several years ago and are probably within U.S. supply depots and yards to this day. Though we could supply them with main battle tanks like the Abrams. We could also supply them with armored personnel carriers or infantry fighting vehicles like the Bradley. The Bradley is an incredibly good armored personnel carrier. I'm a huge fan of it, and also, I honestly have to say, if this picture gets its resolution, it is a cool-looking armored personnel carrier. I don't know about you, Matthew, but this is honestly my favorite.
That is pretty cool. Has it been painted extra, or is that something hanging off the side of it?
Right here?
Yeah, it's like, is that paint?
Yeah,
no, not that thing. It's like some kind of like, black and green.
Yeah,
I can't see really well. It's really blurry.
This is a, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why it's blurry. That's kind of weird. I guess it's our internet connection. But this is a 3-tone NATO SARC camouflage. And I'll actually show you that on a couple of other tanks. NATO SARC camo. I really love this camo. You can see it here on a couple of different vehicles. You can see it on an M60, an M163, a Bradley, and an Abrams. I think it looks the best on a Leclerc. But it's commonly used amongst all NATO countries except for the British. I honestly have to say it's a pretty decent camouflage for as far as woodland camo goes. But yeah, that's what's on the side of this Bradley, and you can also see, funnily enough, some pretty yellowish dirt being flung up on it, which would be more conducive to this desert tan color that a lot of American vehicles have been painted in since we've been heavily involved in Iraq and Afghanistan over the past several decades.
Right. And I just saw it a second ago. It finally got cleared up. Yes, that definitely wasn't something hanging off the side of it. That was simply the paint.
Yeah, that's not anything hanging off the side of it. It does have rucksacks, it appears, hanging off the side of it right behind that, but that I don't know what specifically that thing's called, but it's some kind of a panel that they put on the side of Bradleys for some reason. I don't know why. I hope someone can explain that. But still, it's a nice looking armored personnel carrier. The closest one to it in terms of looks, in my opinion, would be the Warrior IFV. Not the movie, the Warrior. Warrior. But the Warrior infantry fighting vehicle for the British, I honestly think that this too is probably one of the best looking armored personnel carrier / infantry fighting vehicles in the world. But that's just me. So with that, I hope that addresses the question about what we could send over there extra a little bit better. And thank you so much once again for the massive support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Melanie Cortez, who says, great reveal video, totally different than imagined, but still, awesome. You are both amazing, and thank you for all you do. Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for those kind words. It's incredibly nice of you to say, and I'm glad you've been enjoying this channel for so long, and you continue this thing, we can keep this thing running still. Of course, it means a lot to me that a lot of people enjoy this channel, and the Lee Spring Army continues to grow stronger by the day. And hopefully, this Sunday, which is only several days away, considering we started off the brand new week, it's literally at the end of the streaming week, but still, it's only a few days away, and we are only $24,000 away from our $500,000 goal. And so I hope we can reach it. I don't know about y'all, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm pretty hyped. But with that, I hope I addressed that one fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the kind words and helping us to keep this thing running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and next up, we have a $20 super chat from Rock Hall, who says, Mr. President and Barrister Enforcer, and I guess I'm moving to the UK, I'm a barrister now. He says, my question is about the HIMARS. Are the 6 rockets individually targeted or ignited individually, or are all 6 sent as a group to a single target?
That is...
Dum-dum-dee, dum-dum-dee, dum-dum-dee.
What was that?
I don't know. It's like some kind of tune, but I couldn't recognize it.
Well, I'm sorry you butchered the tune. But to answer that question, it's a great one. As far as we know, each HIMARS missile can be directed at entirely separate targets. They are fired pretty much individually, although you can fire them at mass at the same target. We have seen on film 3 HIMARS missiles strike the exact same depot in different locations of it, and we've also seen HIMARS launch independent missiles into entirely separate directions. So, to answer the question, it does have the ability to fire them all off individually at separate targets, but from what we can tell, they're usually used in groups of 3 or 2 to strike a specific target. And so with that, I hope that addresses the question fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support. And also, thank you for calling me Mr. President. Of course, I plan on being y'all's president in 2040, and I hope that y'all will support me then. Of course, Matthew will be an attorney, or a barrister as you called him, and honestly, I gotta say, the British legal system is incredibly interesting to me with the traditions they follow, such as things like attorneys, or barristers as they're called over there, still have to wear robes and wigs on occasions.
Pass on that.
Although I don't think they have to do it all the time. I still think it's cool, Matthew. Honestly, I'm a huge guy for tradition. So let me show the barrister wig. It looks cool. I mean, like, you can't say that that isn't neat. It's like the legacy of Britain still carried through today, and you can kind of see where their legal system came from and how ancient it is. And, you know, the entire U.S. legal system is based off of this. So I can't really diss on it too much because this is where it came from, is such things as wearing powdered wigs in court. I don't think they do that all the time now. I think it's only in certain courts. But still, I like it. I don't know about Matthew. It sounds like he has some conflicted opinions on it.
I don't think I'd ever want to go into court wearing a wig. I don't think that would ever happen.
I honestly like it. I would throw up a poll on that. I'd like to see, do people like the wigs that barristers wear? Yes or no? Someone said dead rat on the head. All right. Wigs. Someone said that's lame. I mean, maybe some people find it lame. I don't know. I just like it because it's carrying over traditions. And while the world can change, I still think it's important to always, I guess you could say, pay respects to the people who came before. That's, of course, why I'm a reenactor, and that's why, if you'll look at the face reveal, to answer some people's questions about what I was wearing, because Matthew was wearing a suit, I was wearing something completely different. I was wearing the exact uniform I wore when we made the Enforcer profile picture. So that's my World War I American Expeditionary Force 1918 uniform that I was wearing. So I hope that explains it a little bit. But with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again. I hope we were able to address that comment fairly well.
And next up, big shout out to Jordan Halsey for putting in a $20 donation, but without a comment. So thank you very much for your support, Jordan. I think that is their first super chat. I'm not really sure. I can't remember for certain. But Enforcer, would you like to add anything?
Now, if that is your first super chat, I thank you so much for supporting this channel for the first time ever. If it isn't, I still thank you so much for supporting this channel. Regardless, your support helps us to keep fed, helps us to keep the lights on, and of course, helps us to keep these streams running. And so I thank you so much for helping us to keep on doing that, and hopefully the Lee Spring Army will continue to press forward until the very end of this war, where we can cover its final hours. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again, Jordan, for the support.
And next up, we have a $20 super chat from Smart Lucker, who says, Bug Killer to find... Wait a minute. He said, Bug Killer, find to kill those Russian spies in your room. We all saw it last night. Glad to see the face reveal, knowing y'all aren't robots, and rooting for Russian Revolution 2022 style. LSA forever. Enforcer for President 2040.
And thank you for the support and also all the kind comments. Now, to address the first one, a lot of viewers brought it to our attention that there was actually a bug that crawled down our wall at around the 7-minute and 10-second mark. And we went back and looked at it, and lo and behold, it was a roach. Apparently, a roach was crawling down our wall at that exact point in filming, and neither of us caught that until we uploaded it, and then people told us about it. So
now everybody's going to go back and look for it.
Yeah, everyone's going to be looking for the roach. But it was hilarious. It was honestly really funny. We moved into this house. It was actually left alone for years. And apparently in that time, roaches started to live in here. We've been trying to kill them off the best we can. We actually keep food and like hiding inside of ovens and stuff like that to make sure that they don't have anything to live off of in the house.
Too much information, Enforcer.
Yeah, it's
too much information.
It's too much information, but we are trying to kill them off. That's all I'm going to say. So with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much. Wait a minute. Read off some more of that because I think I only addressed the first part of it.
So Smart Lucker said about the bug. He mentioned that. Then he said, glad to see the face reveal, knowing y'all aren't robots, and rooting for the Russians.
Now, you know, I thank you for saying that, because one thing that some people have said as a strike against our channel is that they cannot see our face. And I've honestly, my opinion is, regardless of what my face looks like, I felt like it was better to judge us off of the character of who we were, you know, what we talked about, what we believed about, and what we did, more so than our appearance. But of course, it does mean a lot to some people, and I'm glad that we were able to show who we were for just a little bit, although it won't be a common occurrence. We won't be you know, and of course, I'm not saying that's a bad thing to be this way, but we won't be like Operator Starsky or anyone else on YouTube where we are on stream and you can see us the whole time. We'll still be doing the live streams like this just because it's a lot easier for us, and also y'all can see the Google Maps that I'm using the whole time, and so y'all know exactly what I'm looking at and where inside of Ukraine. Still, real quick though, huge shout out to Operator Starsky, who has supported our channel through and through. He's an incredibly cool guy. If y'all have never gone over there, I suggest y'all go over to his channel and subscribe to it. He's a cool guy. He's a Ukrainian press officer, and he too also covers news about the war in Ukraine. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope we were able to address that comment fairly well.
And next up, we have a $20 super chat from Squamous Amos, who says, thought y'all'd have faces for radio since y'all have such voice talent, but y'all looked great. Question, were you homeschooled at all? Not throwing shade, because I was homeschooled for a stretch, and I just got vibes a while back.
Squamous,
we actually were not homeschooled.
Squamous, I want to make sure to answer this one personally, Squamous. We are actually products of public school, surprisingly, believe it or not. We never did a single day in homeschooling. We somehow ended up like this going through public school. And the public school we went through, not to dog on it or anything, but it was a pretty rough place.
It wasn't the best.
It wasn't really the best. So I don't really know how we turned out like this, but I'm still happy about it. And we actually never went through a day of homeschooling. And also, that's another interesting thing. I don't know how we, because a lot of people say that we're sheltered because we don't know a lot about like sports or actors or anything. I don't really know how I ended up not knowing anything about any of them up till this day. And I still don't know anything about them. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. And the answer to that question, Squamous Amos, is that no, we were never homeschooled. We went through public school in Alabama. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right. And next up, we have a $20 super chat from Duncan VR. Here we go. Ba ba ba. Enforcer Matthew Broderick, LSA. I knew he was a movie star. Ba ba. Lose the suit. LOL. Ba. Meow. Enforcer, are you sure you're Matthew's brother? LOL. Meow. Meow. Woof woof. Wah wah. Oink oink. Yeehaw. Ba. Have some spam pizza.
Matthew, whenever you read those off, you sound like you're a crazy person in an insane asylum. You're like that guy on Shark Tank who would sit there and go, I don't know, bing, 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 that's a lot of money, bing, bing, you know, do that stuff. It sounded like that, but I thank you for the support, Ducky VR. And honestly, I gotta be honest with y'all, I actually encouraged Matthew to wear the suit. I thought it looked good, and I still think it looks good. I thought it was a nice look. And of course, I wore my little World War I Enforcer uniform because how else were y'all going to recognize me if I didn't wear that? So I wore it for that reason. So with that, I thank you so much for the support once again, Duncan VR, and also torturing Matthew again. And now that you know what he looks like, now you know that it's in fact not Matthew, it's Matthew Broderick who's reading off your super chat. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And folks,
it looks like our chat disconnected on my control room, Matthew. 1 second.
Are we still live?
It says that we're still live, but for some reason the chat disconnected. Let me refresh my screen. Maybe that's just a small glitch.
I think you're having a glitch.
I think I may be having a glitch. And I am having a glitch. That was incredibly weird. So with that, we are on to the next one.
But I was about to say, folks, you know how you get on Zoom and you only wear like the top part of whatever like clothes you're wearing, like the outfit? That's basically what I was doing. I was only wearing like the suit jacket and the shirt, and I was wearing shorts and like normal shoes underneath. So you couldn't tell it on the camera, luckily. But I was pulling a Zoom tactic on that one. Just a little interesting fact I thought y'all would want to know. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat, we have a $20 donation from Nathan Burke, who says, I'm hoping that Ukraine gets F-16s.
And I'm hoping that Ukraine gets F-16s too. I don't know the possibility of Ukraine actually getting aircraft from any Western country during this war, but if they got any aircraft at all, I would want the first ones they get to be F-16s. They are multi-role aircraft. They can both strike targets on the ground and destroy aircraft in the air. And for that reason alone, I think they are well suited to being in Ukraine. Not only that, they have very good flight performance from what I've been able to hear from both the pilots and ground crews that work on them. And so I would love to see, and I do hope as well, that F-16s eventually do make it to Ukraine. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
Somebody said, Enforcer Matt looks like Review Bra.
Do it again, Matthew.
I tried to do a really cheap imitation of Review Bra on the video, but I failed at it miserably.
You gotta do it again, Matthew. Do it like the Taco Bell.
What does he say?
Hello, everyone. This is Review of the Week running on empty.
Oh, yeah, yes. Hey guys, it's review of the week, and it's running on empty. Food review.
That's actually
I hit it that time.
You
Finally.
hit it. That was perfect. If the chat says that's not perfect, I don't know what would be. That was a great review, bro. I loved it. Also, Magic Sky Girl asked, what was the Enforcer wearing under that dusk? I was actually wearing shorts and tennis shoes. So I wasn't wearing the whole World War I uniform. If you know anything about it, the most difficult part to put on is the legs, because I have to wrap a long piece of cloth around the bottom of my thighs like I'm a mummy, and it takes a while. So with that, I hope that addressed a question for you real quick, Magic Sky Girl. And with that, we are on to the next one. Also, I thank you once again for the support, and I hope that addressed the question as to whether the F-16 should be there or not, or the comment, and I totally agree with it. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And yes, Sweaty Chungus, I was pulling a Ronnie fit. But anyways, up next, big shout out to J.K. James once again for putting in a $20 super chat, and also Colonel Clink for putting in a $20 super chat as well. So thank you very much to both of you for your support of the channel, and we appreciate it very much, and thank you for helping to keep us running. And moving right along, we have a $20 super chat from Joseph M. Psycho, or Sicko, I'm not sure which one it was meant to be. He says, just like you don't mass mobilize hundreds of thousands of troops on the Ukrainian border and not attack, how did the people that said Russia won't attack did not see it coming? And as an anti-tank U.S. Marine who used the Javelin.
Well, I thank you very much for the support, and believe it or not, I actually did not see it coming at the beginning of this war, because it just didn't make any sense for the Russians to do it. In both terms, it would be military suicide, and it would also be economic suicide. And also diplomatic suicide. It would be suicide for the Russians on every single turn. And I believe that it was not going to happen. I saw the military buildup as a ruse to try and get some kind of appeasement in the peace talks, which went on for months, almost from December to February itself, when the talks broke down and the war began. And when you look at it, I got to say this real quick. When you look at it, it shouldn't have happened. The Russians committed economic suicide, like I was thinking before the war. Their economy has tanked, and even now with the rumors of conscription starting to circle the country, the stock market in Russia has crashed like it's 1929 during the Great Depression. So, of course, in the end, it is equaled economic suicide for the Russians, which may as well be national suicide in the modern world, considering that countries don't really work off of conquest anymore. They work off of economic prowess, and they pretty much have since the beginning of time. The second thing is that their military, of course, committed pretty much military suicide. There was no way that they were going to win this war, especially if you look at modern Russian military history. They've never really had an easy time doing anything. It's just because the training isn't there, the equipment isn't there, and the command structure isn't there either. And so, in that regard, it wouldn't have been conducive for them to fight it either. It would have been a tough battle, even if they did win it. And then finally, the last one is diplomatic suicide. Obviously, they've alienated themselves from pretty much the entirety of the world, including countries that are sympathetic to their cause, like the Chinese. The Chinese can't ally with them, because then they would be enemies of the United States, and they would lose one of their largest trading partners, most likely along with the EU as well, which would throw the Chinese into an economic shrink, the likes of which you would have never seen in the modern world. And so for all those reasons, one would believe at the beginning of the war that it wouldn't happen, because it just was not conducive for the Russians any way you looked at it. Yet the Russians did the unthinkable, and instead of using their military for diplomatic and political leverage alone over Ukraine in international peace talks, they then went to war. And so to answer that question, that's why I didn't think the war would start at the beginning, but after it did, of course, I've been here reporting it ever since, and I hope you've been enjoying it so far. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the question in a way, and with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right. All right, and moving on to our next super chat, we have a $20 donation from Al Zier, who says, greetings from Monroe, Washington, and thank you for the awesome coverage of current events. I've been watching these streams for a while and want you to answer a question from the live chat, as I don't have any. American Finn.
Well, I thank you so much for the support. And also, Monroe, Washington. Real quick, Matthew, I think we're actually doing incredibly well on time. It's only 11:19. Monroe, Washington. Actually, it's 12:19 Eastern time. We're of course, y'all know we're in Alabama, so it's Central time for us, but we always do everything off of Eastern time. So let's take a look at this little town. Where is it in Washington? Well, it's right outside of Seattle, pretty much. It's a I would say, well, it's not really right outside Seattle, but it's close. So let's take a look at this. Also, real quick, while we do this, Matty, how many super chats do we have left?
So let's see here. Also, don't forget that I have to sponsor a question for Alzir, but it looks like we have about let me try to do these quick maths in my head real quick.
Quick maths.
This could go terribly. Let's see. 10, 20, 30. Looks like about 35 more.
Oh, that's not really a lot. So honestly, I gotta say, this little town in Monroe, Washington does not look that bad. And also they got a speedway. Wow, that's really cool. That is really neat. I didn't know that y'all had stuff like that in like a town this size. Here in Alabama, this thing would have nothing. It even has a prison. That's something. We would never have a prison this close to a town in Alabama, at least that I can think of. But well, then again, I'm kind of wrong. One of the places we came from kind of did, but still, I do thank you so much for supporting. And also, it's really cool to see your hometown of Monroe, Washington. And so with that, we are going to be sponsoring a question from the live chat. And so with that, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, and this question is sponsored by Alzir. And the question goes to Slava Ukraine, who says, "What happened to Putin giving his speech today? Is he in hiding?"
I don't know what happened with Putin giving a speech today. I heard he was supposed to give one. Apparently, unlike Zelensky, it's incredibly rare to have the leader of Russia speak to his own people. So it's been a very big deal, but I have not seen him address the public yet. And it may be that he's gotten some cold feet, or he's back there telling the doctor, give me some more medicine or I'll poison you. And so with that, I hope that addresses the question fairly well, but I don't really know what's going on with the speech, to be honest with you, and I'm kind of waiting to see what he will say. For him to be giving a speech at all, it must be a pretty big deal, whatever's about to be announced, so we will be looking to see what it is exactly. But with that, I hope you were able to answer that question fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And I want to clarify one thing. Alzir is actually pronounced Oats Air, I was told in the live chat, so sorry about that. I wasn't really sure how to pronounce it, so I just butchered it to play it safe. But anyways, thank you very much for the support, and we appreciate it very much. And moving right along, we have a $20 super chat from KG, who says, "Unconfirmed news, but I just read that all NATO military planes turned off their transponders in the surrounding Ukraine area have turned off their transponders as well. Again, it's unconfirmed, but what could that be signaling if true?"
Unfortunately, I don't really know a lot about that news. I didn't hear about it, but if that is true and NATO is turning off the transponders of their aircraft in the area, that means that they could be expecting drastic action by the Russians, and they would prefer to have these aircrafts not spotted by the Russian Federation due to their transponders being on, in case if they have to be used on a moment's notice. It could be showing that the West is expecting something extreme to happen soon, but then again, that could just be a precaution by the West to give the Russians a little bit of a message that if anything the Russians do is a little too extreme, the West will respond immediately. And so with that, I hope that addresses the question fairly well, but honestly, it could be the lead up to really anything, or the mindset of NATO in multiple ways that I can't even really account for. But with that, I hope we still kind of addressed the question the best we could, and we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have an $18 super chat from Junebug72, who says, "Nice reveal vid, Slava Ukraine, and my best to you both."
And thank you so much for the kind words of support. I love that a lot of people enjoyed our face reveal. Once again, I was very scared that it wouldn't be taken incredibly well, and so I'm just happy to know that everyone liked it. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, and also thank you so much for being a longtime member of the Lee Spring Army and helping us to keep this thing running. And so with that, I hope I addressed that comment fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $15 super chat from NOYDB, who says, "Poll request. Should Andrew and Matthew make a second version of the reveal video where they dub in each other's voices?"
That is actually an interesting idea. It would probably be far too difficult for us to do because when I talk, of course I have a certain way of talking with fluctuations, and I actually talk, of course, as y'all can tell, incredibly fast. Also, I'm overdosed on caffeine right now, which is another reason why. But it would be very hard for me to lip sync with Matthew and Matthew to lip sync with me because our way of talking is almost night and day. Matthew is a lot more slower and better pronounced in his talking, and I'm a lot faster and I guess you could say have a more speedier tone. And so it's really hard to get those two things aligned where it will work because both of us would have to pretty much go in the opposite direction to make it work. But it's an interesting idea nonetheless. I do like where you're going with that. And so with that, I thank you for the support. I hope that does answer the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $14 super chat from AK Smithy, who says, Enforcer, I think the sham referendums will be a double-edged sword for Russia. If they claim Ukraine is now attacking Russian territory, I think the shackles come off for Ukraine, and here come the attackums.
Interesting thought. If speaking about the referendums, if the referendums do happen, they're not going to be legitimized by anyone rather than Russia because everyone knows that they'll be shams. They won't be properly held, and the Russians will just come up with whatever ballots they want. That's what they've historically done. And so I would have to say, if the Russians did that, there's really nothing I don't really think, honestly, anything would change. Because we've already seen the Ukrainians attack cities within mainland Russia and within Crimea as well, and the Russian response has never really increased because of them. And so if they did supposedly annex the controlled areas of Ukraine, I don't think that would really amount to anything because the Ukrainians could just retake it and the Russians would be powerless to do anything unless if they declared full mobilization. And even then, that full mobilization would really change nothing in the course of this war in terms of what the Russians are capable of doing. And so with that, I hope that addresses the question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support. And I hope that addressed the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And next up, we have a $12 super chat from Justin's Leafspring, who says, after the face reveal, I gotta say your faces and voices combo is a total mismatch. It was still very cool to finally see what you look like. I don't think any Russian operative will bother you, but if any does, show them your AR-15.
Well, I thank you so much for the support, and a lot of people have said that our voices are mismatched, and so I'm wondering, should I start doing a Sam Elliott just the entire stream, so that way people won't say that anymore, and y'all be like, yeah, that's what you should sound like. I don't know, but I do thank you for the support. Also pretty funny that everyone has been saying that, and it is kind of weird. It is kind of funny in a way. It's really funny, actually. I get a good laugh out of that, because apparently we are the complete opposites of what y'all imagined we would be off of our voices. But with that, I hope that addresses the question fairly well. And have you ever wanted the pulling power of a Ford F-150? Because with that, we are moving on to the next one.
And next up, we have a $10 super chat from Paul, who says, good evening, Enforcer and Enforcer Matt. I hope you're both doing well, and just wanted to say thank you for the consistent and reliable news. Love you both, and Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much once again for the kind support. And I thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. It does mean a lot to us that everyone has supported us through and through with everything that we've done. I'm glad that everyone still supports us after the face reveal. And so with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the kind support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from WF2U, who says, enjoyed the unveiling last night. Y'all look very businesslike. Tonight's plain language Morse code message is, the Russians got beat so badly, they made a new order, number 227. Slava Ukraine.
And Slava Ukraini. And also to answer that question, also about the Morse code, ding, 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 that is correct. They, like I said at the beginning of the stream, it's pretty much a modern revision of Soviet Order number 227 that they've created, especially with the laws about Russian soldiers deserting or surrendering. That's pretty much Order number 227 once over again in the modern day. Also, another thing to address is thank you so much for enjoying our face reveal last night. It was really interesting to see everyone's reactions again. And once again, I cannot overstate how happy I was that it was all positive and we didn't see hardly any negative at all. And if we did see negative, it was a joke. So with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. And I thank you once again for deciphering these Morse code messages and sticking with us every night to decipher the Morse code. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right. And Enforcer, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good deal, because you're breaking up tremendously bad over there. But anyways, to answer a question I'm seeing in the live chat a whole bunch, we were actually filming that video in my room. So the drum set in the background is actually mine. I used to play the drums a whole lot. I actually learned how to play them in band in high school. So I haven't played in quite a while, so I'm probably rusty. And also, that car case that y'all saw in the background is also mine. So some people were commenting on my car collection was pretty nice. I have a good car selection. But yeah, cool model case in the background there. I just turned around to look at it and I noticed it's getting pretty dusty. I need to dust that case. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat. We have one from Ivan Zlater or something like that. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it somewhat accurately. He puts in a $10 donation and says, "These jokers are going to start World War III. They simply can't accept the reality of their military decline. If there is no internal revolt, they will all at some point talk themselves into nuclear action."
And I would have to agree with that entirely. And it does seem like Russia's kind of on the road of just doubling down in their fantasy land until they eventually get to the point where they go, it is necessary to nuke everyone to try and win. And because that's almost where they're going every single day. And I would have to agree with that entirely. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the question fairly well. Well, the comment fairly well, because I almost agree with it entirely. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right. And next up, we have a $12 super chat from Outback Touring Australia, who says, "Hi guys, I love your work. I watch religiously. Matt definitely looks like Ferris Bueller. Do you think if Russia mobilizes, will the USA fast track the Lend-Lease? Cheers, legends from far north Queensland in Australia." And thank you, Outback, for the kind words and the support.
And thank you, Outback Steakhouse, for the brand new garlic butter, mashed potatoes, and the 16-ounce ribeye. But moving on from the joke about Outback, I thank you so much for watching this religiously, and I'm glad you do enjoy it that much. Of course, it's been a pleasure for us to do this every single day for the past 210 days, except for Mondays, and I'm glad you've been enjoying it so much. Also, another thing, if Russia did mobilize, I do think the United States and the West would probably start to double down even larger than before on their support to Ukraine, because it only seems reasonable. That would be an equal escalation on the West side and their support for Ukraine to make sure that Ukraine can keep up with the times. So I would pretty much back that up 100%, that if Russia mobilizes, the West will start to send more support to Ukraine. And so with that, I hope that addresses the question fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support, Outback, and all those kind words as well. And also, thank you so much to our Elite Spring Army members in Australia. There are actually loads of y'all who watch this channel, along with the New Zealanders, the Canadians, and the British, and I thank every single one of y'all for watching. Interestingly enough, most of the countries that watch our channel are English-speaking countries, which is kind of weird. I wonder why. So with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And next up, we have a $10 super chat from Ole Walansky, who says, "Are the Russians pushing the referendums because they are in the process of convincing their population they are actually fighting NATO? Then they can say, see, we're the ones actually being invaded in a subliminal manner."
Yes, I think that they are trying to operate in somewhat of a Machiavellian way, much like the German, I guess you could say, Chancellor Otto von Bismarck would work with the North German Confederation when they went to war with France in the Franco-Prussian War. They went to war with France in the Franco-Prussian War for the sole purpose of getting the remaining southern German kingdoms like Bavaria to join Germany, which would then later form the German Empire. I feel like that's almost what the Russians are doing here. They're trying to create a referendum in Ukraine, a fake one that, of course, will be approved, like the one in Crimea. So that way, when the Ukrainians begin a new offensive and take this land, the Russians can act like they are now attacking our sovereign land. They're going to pretend like the war was over, much like they did for the past few years. And then they'll say, we were starting a Russia's war of defense. We have no choice, but we have to mobilize, bliet. And then they'll start mobilizing everyone they can to go and try and defend land that's not even theirs, and they just annexed wrongfully and illegally just probably weeks or months prior. So that's probably the direction it's heading in, and I would have to agree with you a lot. Also, I know that I said Machiavellian. It's actually Machiavellian. I just thought about that in my head. I was like, why in the
Machiavellian.
Yeah, and everyone's pronouncing it in the chat Machiavelli. Machiavellian, I don't know. Anyways, it will be a lot like that. The Russians are trying to play a brain game with the public so that way they can continue to try and keep the war going and try and win eventually, although I think it's far out of reach for them at this point. And so with that, I hope I addressed that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one. Hello?
All right, the Discord will eventually come back in a second. Enforcer, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Not for a good split second there, but we're back, it seems like. So the next super chat we have is from Sully, who puts in a $13 super chat and says, I'm thinking that the reason Russia wants to have a phony referendum in the 4 regions of Ukraine is so they can legally justify calling out all Russian men and boys because they can say that Ukraine is now attacking Russia.
And I thank you for the support, and we actually just covered a question just like that. And I would have to agree with that entirely. They're trying to play a brain game with the Russian public, so that way, when the Ukrainians start another successful counterattack like they did in the northeastern area of Kharkiv, they can go, look, they're attacking our motherland. Quick, everyone to arms. We're mobilizing everyone. We have to defend the Russian people. That's exactly what they're probably trying to do here in the future. And it's being seen clearly what their plan is. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the question or the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and next up real quick, this is out of order, but Sully sent in one more super chat and put in a $3 donation and said, you stole the thunder of my last super chat, Enforcer.
Well, I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to steal the thunder, but of course, it is how it is. But I do thank you for the support, and I'm sorry about that again. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And I really wish this Discord issue would sort itself out because I'm hearing the Enforcer like say things twice. He starts talking like he's rapping, and then he starts talking like he's on drugs or something. So moving on to the next super chat, we have a $10 donation from Kevin Moore, who does not leave a comment. But Kevin, thank you very much for your support. We appreciate it very much. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Galaxy Fur 1014, who says, do you think it would be a good idea for Ukraine to re-gauge their railroad tracks to standard gauge like the US and UK uses after the war? Plus, they can use better US or EU freight equipment.
And that is a great question, and I would have to say I think it would be beneficial for them to do. Most of that would just be realigning the railroad ties on, well, not the railroad ties, the actual rails themselves on the railroad ties. So it wouldn't be too much. It would be expensive, none, of course, but it wouldn't be too much for them to do. And of course, that means that the Russians would either have to rip up those tracks and entirely rebuild them, or any Eastern country would have to do that. And their trains on the onset of another war would not be able to operate on Ukrainian gauges. But looking at it from an economic perspective, it would also make trains passing from Ukraine and into countries like Poland or Germany, or really the rest of the EU for that matter, it would make it a lot easier, considering that there wouldn't have to be no gauge change. It would simply just be a switch of national borders. And so it would be a lot easier for the Ukrainian economy to connect to the rest of Europe if it used the standard gauge. And so I entirely agree that would probably be a smart thing for the Ukrainians to do after this war. And so I hope I addressed that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and just a heads up, Enforcer, we do have about 35 more super chats to go.
Jeez.
So up next... Yes, it's like we haven't moved at all.
Yeah.
I said 35 about, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, and now I'm still saying 35. So up next, we have a $10 super chat from Scott, who says, goodness, you guys are young not to know who these actors are. FYI, Matthew Broderick did the voice of adult Simba in The Lion King. Keep up the good work, you young whippersnappers, making me feel old at 39.
And I thank you so much for the support. And of course, I actually didn't know that Matthew Broderick did the adult Simba in the movie Simba. I cannot do the voice of Simba, but I can do Simba's dad. Look at the darkness. Everything in the light is ours. That was James Earl Jones, and I did a terrible one of James Earl Jones, just being honest. Don't. If you thought that was good, I'm sorry. That was butchering James Earl Jones' voice. But that is pretty interesting to hear. And of course, I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, I hope we addressed that one fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And I'm being told that Putin's new speech is going to start at, let's see, somebody said midnight. Is that accurate?
Midnight when?
I'm not sure. They didn't really specify.
Because if it's midnight Eastern time, then it's already passed. If it's midnight Central time, then there's about 20 minutes left. So with that, we are on to the next one. If someone can clarify what time zone that was, we might look into that. So with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And next up, we have a $10 super chat from W, who says, Matthew Broderick was in Red Dawn. Shame on you all for not knowing that. That movie was epic. And Wolverines.
Matthew Broderick, Red Dawn. Matthew, were you a, well, come on, where is it? Where is it? Come on. Where is he? Where is he from Red Dawn? I don't see him. Oh, wait a minute. I don't see him. Yeah. I don't see him. Oh, look. It's the good Red Dawn. Said no one. But with that, thank you for the support. Sadly, I cannot find a picture of Matthew Broderick in Red Dawn. So sadly, I won't be able to find that and show that on stream. But I do thank you so much for the support, and I hope we were able to address that comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again. And we're just waiting for Matthew to catch up over there.
All right. There we go. This is so irritating. Y'all don't know how irritating this is because I hear the enforcer stopping through the door, but he's not stopping on Discord. So M90 Regal Grand Sports said that Putin's speech starts at 1 a.m. Eastern today, so 20 minutes from now.
Interesting. Now, Matthew, here's a question for the both of us. Considering I'm extremely caffeinated, so I'm sure it'll be no problem for me to stay up at that time, would you like to find a live stream of President Putin's address and watch that once we reach that time?
My big question would be, are we at risk for a copyright strike if we do that?
I don't think we would be, because it would be under news reporting, so it's fair use. So I think we would be okay.
We'd have to talk all the way through it, I think.
I don't think so, because it is something that is pretty much a product of the government, and also we are using it once again for news, for news purposes. And so, you know, of course, talking through it would defeat the purposes of showing the speech. So I think we would be.
You know what? Let's do it. Let's do it.
We'll do it. We'll try and find a speech out there somewhere. I'll be trying to look on my second screen in the meantime for Putin's speech. Let's see here. Putin's Putin's address to Russia delayed after hours of waiting. Let's see here. Trying to find a live stream here. If you could find one for me, Matthew, just send it to me as a Discord link, and I'll try and pull it up. And I know you already got a lot on your plate, so I'm sorry about that. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and I'm not sure if I'll be able to find it, but I'll see what I can do. But up next, we have a $10 super chat from White Lightning 777, who says, when you do the CC text to speech, making the font size bigger keeps it from being cut off at the bottom.
And thank you for the support. And of course, and sadly, we cannot do that on the Russian state TV videos, if that's what you're talking about. Those subtitles are actually built into the video itself, and so we can't move them around. They're stuck in place, so I just have to read over them. And so with that, thank you for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Dwayne Porter, who says, hey guys, I'm new here, and welcome to the Leaf Spring Army, Dwayne. He says, I would tell Zelensky to offer this to Russia. You get those territories, and we will ask to be fast-tracked into NATO for the remaining land. We have shown we can whoop Russia on the battlefield, and salute. And Dwayne, I have to say that at this point, I think the Ukrainians are dead set on getting back all of their territory. While I do respect the, I guess, diplomatic approach, I think at this point, they might be past that point.
I think honestly, it's an interesting idea, but the problem with that is that Ukraine would be negotiating with Russia, who has no say on how NATO operates. That Ukraine would be fast tracked into NATO, but that's a entire diplomatic agreement that would have to be made in between Ukraine and NATO and not Ukraine and Russia. So that would actually draw NATO into the negotiating table, and I don't know how that would work with the three parties there talking about that. And also, I don't think that Ukraine would be okay with giving up that much land, especially most of it in the south. So with that, I thank you for the support. I don't think the Ukrainians would want to do that, but it is an interesting suggestion nonetheless. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right. And next up, we have a $10 super chat from Revenge, who says, "Good day, enforcers. You guys are just too cute. Check out Wollongong, NSW, Australia, my hometown near the beach. It's North Wollongong Beach. Love your work and thank you."
Well, thank you so much for the support, and also thank you for calling us cute. That's neat. That's kind of weird, but neat, I guess. So let's check out Wollongong Beach. It looks like it's a part of the larger city of. Actually, it's not part of a larger city. It looks like it's south of Sydney, but I can't really find anything that isn't Wollongong. It looks like everything else may be something of a suburb. But let's check this place out. Crocky, mate. It's Australia. It doesn't look that bad, honestly. I like how nice the street is. It's nice and paved. It doesn't have any potholes in it for as far as the eye can see. A pretty nice place overall. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also thank you for letting us take a quick little look at your hometown of Wollongong. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and I'm still searching. I'm seeing a lot of people say in the live chat, look on Sky News for the live stream of Putin's speech, but I don't see it. I think I see a link from 12 hours ago, but I'm still looking. Let me quickly put this in here. It's a little bit of a hefty load between the two super chats and also finding that, so please bear with me here just a moment. Enforcer, if you want, I can just forward you the spreadsheet if you want to read off that while I look for it.
If you can forward me the spreadsheet?
Yes, I'm gonna send you the link.
Sadly, I think if someone could just send the link to Matthew for the stream over Discord, then Matthew could send it to me. I think that would be the best way to do it. And so we'll just wait on that, Matthew, and we'll just continue on reading off questions until hopefully someone can get us that link. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also I see that somebody said live stream listed by Queen Susie in the Discord, and I will take a look at that in just a second. Also, Susie, if you're in the live chat, if you'd like to PM that to me, that would be very nice. So thank you very much for finding it. And next up, we have a $10 super chat from Kenton Tyree, who says, "Enforcer, I can't find info on silver Ukrainian coin you once had on the show. It depicted a soldier holding a rifle."
Interesting. Sadly, I can't remember that specific bit of information about the coin, but I would highly suggest going back to that stream, finding that map link and clicking on it, because it will have that specific marker on it, and then that may lead you to where the coin is. But I do thank you for the support. I hope that addresses the question in a way. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Michael Cabrera, who says, "Has Russia's defense minister ever served in the military, or did his uniforms come with those medals and ribbons attached?" Toby Maguire does look like Enforcer Matt.
I hate to say it. I don't think Toby Maguire looks a lot like Enforcer Matt. I think he looks a lot more like Matthew Broderick.
Broderick.
Yeah, Broderick. But let's see here. The Sergei Shoigu. Here's Sergei in 2002. For some reason, he looks like a minifigure, like an action figure you get in like a G.I. Joe kit. But let's see here. Minister of Emergency Situations. Interesting. Sure, you worked in construction projects. What in the world? So pretty much, his whole early history was him in the Soviet government, pretty much in construction and architecture. So this guy is pretty much like a construction executive, and then he became the Minister of Emergency Situations, which I guess you could say is his first taste of a small amount of military experience. Then he became the governor of the Moscow Oblast, and then he became the Minister of Defense in 2012. So it looks like all of those medals did come attached with the uniform, and he really doesn't have any military experience to speak of. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And that's actually shocking that he has absolutely no military experience. He's literally just a construction executive. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for allowing us to finally see that this guy is pretty much a quack when it comes to anything regarding the military. He knows more about building a building than running or building an army. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving right along, we have a $10 super chat from Joseph M. Seco. He says it's pronounced Seco. So thank you very much for the clarification, Joseph. I was butchering it tremendously bad. So sorry about that. He says, growing up, of course, kids call me Sicko. In the Marines, it was Psycho. But seriously, if Russia mass mobilizes, what do you think is going to happen? I think a lot more dead Russians.
I think if Russia mobilizes, I don't really think it's going to amount to a lot extra. The only thing that it'll do is probably crowd the areas of the front that the Russians currently have with older vehicles or low-equipped troops that are poorly trained, and it'll just become a slaughter for the Russians, and they'll continue to lose massive amounts of men and equipment every day. That's honestly the way I see it going, and also, that's pretty funny to hear that everyone calls you Sicko growing up. That's actually pretty funny, but we will make sure to call it Seco from here forward. And also, it's interesting, man. You actually hit the nail on both of them. He was called Psycho in the Marines and Sicko as a kid. But so with that, that's actually pretty cool. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and next up, we have an $8 super chat from Kaz Butler, who says, hi guys, Australians can't donate via YouTube, but is there another way you could get donations? Maybe GoFundMe. Would love to be a part of the 500,000 milestone.
And I thank you so much for the support, but sadly, there is no way in my mind that I could get the Australian viewers or the New Zealand viewers to donate to these fundraisers and keep it, I guess you could say, safe in my opinion. Every time I do a fundraiser, I make sure that there is a clear and definable paper trail that is visible to everyone who watches. And with a GoFundMe, while there can be a goal and you can see that number, the question is, once that goal is reached, or once that money is taken out of that account and it goes directly into my hands, how do y'all know where that's going? Y'all don't. And so that's a good idea. It's a great principle, but I just don't like the idea of people, and I know y'all trust me. That's no question. But I don't like the idea from a third-person perspective looking in of me taking y'all's money to put it towards charity, and then there's really no proof of where it goes, rather than me saying, trust me, bro, or trying to show y'all some kind of paperwork that someone could equally, on the same note, just come up with and say, hey, look, it made it to a nonprofit. And I don't really like the idea of managing funds for donation funds personally, because there throws in a lot of questionability as to what's actually happening with it. That's why I've always run my fundraisers through YouTube Give, and that's also why we have never supported a fundraiser that is not on YouTube Give, because YouTube Give allows us the ability to fundraise entirely through YouTube system. So they take your money directly out of your amount that you sent in. So $100, they take that $100 and put it into an account. They do not deduct any amount from it whatsoever for processing or anything like that. It sits in that account. Once the fundraiser is complete, they do a little bit of compiling with the numbers and the figures to figure out exactly how many donations were sent in, by who, what's the exact total, and then they send that entire allotment of cash. So if that night $20,331 is raised, $20,331 exactly will be sent to that nonprofit. It's safe from end to end, and that's why I like it a lot. And also, regardless of however much y'all trust me or not, I want to make sure that if someone was new to this channel and just stepped in here and knew nothing about me, that they could support a fundraiser without having to raise questions of, is this guy trustworthy or not? Because I feel like it should always be that way. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. Sadly, I don't think there would be a way for me to include y'all without, in my opinion, making it seem unsafe. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And I hate to put it down, but once again, I just want to make sure that everyone can be assured that if they are fundraising on this channel, they know exactly where it's going, and they can go back to each Sunday stream and see the exact number raised on that fundraiser. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and also an update on finding the link to the speech for Putin. At the moment, it doesn't look like there's any definite like time frame for when he's going to give the speech. It was simply pushed back until Wednesday. It looks like nobody's really sure what time it's going to be on. And also, I don't have a link. So at the moment, it looks like we might not be able to see it, but I'll keep on the lookout. But moving on to our next super chat, we have a $7.77 donation from Bradley Walker, who says, I'm a longtime fan, but first time super chatter. Why do you get copyright strikes and age restriction showing the same vids that state media like Polish TVP show with music and carnage?
Well, that's a great question. Also, thank you for supporting us for the first time. And of course, it's wonderful to get support from our viewers, and it helps us keep running. I've said that a lot, and y'all already know that, but I've always got to say it so that way, I can make sure to thank each and every one of y'all for keeping this channel rolling. But to answer that question, the reason why we got copyright strikes is because someone falsely filed them on us. We had not infringed on anyone's copyright at that point. But someone out there said we did, and YouTube just believed them and put copyright strikes on our channel. We've gotten one of them lifted. I'm working on getting the second one lifted right now. And so that's why we got copyright strikes. And for the age restriction, the only one that happened on stream, the reason why is because I don't really know what it was. It was either the pig head, it was the guy getting beat by the cops. It was something. There was a lot of stuff that night that I was like, oh my god, it's going south. And so I don't know which one it was specifically, but apparently someone reported our stream while it was live for that being in there, and then YouTube looked at it and said, that's not really suitable for all audiences, and so we're going to age restricted, and they age restricted it in the middle of the stream. And so I hope that addresses the question as to why both of those happened. And of course, we are still trying to get that last copyright strike lifted. It doesn't really affect us, but I hate to see that on my dashboard every time I get on there, knowing that someone just did that to us for no good reason. And so with that, I hope that answers the question in every way I can, and thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, folks. So it appears I have been sent a link, and big shout out to David for sending the link to me. It appears that the speech is going to start in 63 minutes, so at 1 a.m. Our time. So quite a while until it starts, and it looks like, according to this appears to be some kind of Russian channel of some sort, and I really hate to have this in my search history at this point, but it looks like he's rumored to announce referendums and or full mobilization. So this could be quite a big speech if this is accurate. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat, we have a $5 donation from Cade Riddle, who says, here, have some money.
Well, thank you for the support, Cade Riddle. And that was kind of direct, but I do thank you for helping us out and helping the stream to keep running. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Ultron Prime, who says, Enforcer Matt, can you be the new Peter Parker or Spider-Man? I know, because I don't really look like him. But anyways, thank you for the support and also the little funny statement there. And moving right along, we have a $5 super chat from James Dunn, who says, I heard that Russia is deploying a new Army Corps to the southwest front, the 3rd Army Corps. Any idea its impact on front?
Unfortunately, I wouldn't have an idea of how it will impact the front. It may be put into reserves. It may be put onto the front lines. And if it is, I think it will be rotating out with another unit. And so I don't think it will be doing much to change the situation. It may just be relieving worn out and already exhausted forces that are in the area. And we've already seen that that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't change the situation. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from KG, who says, let's put to bed the talk about the A-10.
Oh, no.
F-15s were chosen to replace the very vulnerable A-10s for CAS missions. There is a very good reason for that.
And I thank you so much for the support, KG. And I already see where the live chat will go violent. But I do have to say, I still kind of stick by my guns that The A-10, while being a heavy-hitting close air support plane, it is starting to show its age. And of course, everyone knows what I think about the gun. Everyone worships the gun. Mathematically, it's not that great, especially when you go through the actual ballistics of it. I've already done it before. I will not do it again, and I'm not going to stay on this for too long. Because I know it's just going to start a fight in the chat. But thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And next up, we have let's see, make sure here I'm in the right spot. Yes, we have another $5 super chat from Ultron Prime, who says, Enforcer, I have to say, after the face reveal, I recognize an old soul when I see one. How are you not mentally 50? Slava Ukraine and Slava LSA.
Well, I thank you so much for the support and the kind words. I think being called an old soul is kind of a kind word in a way. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I don't know. But I'll take it as a kind word this time. How am I not mentally 50? That's a great question, and I honestly do not know because while I've never really gotten into pop culture or sports or anything, whenever I'm hanging around in a public situation, I can throw out jokes about anything and get some laughs from them all the time. I think it's mostly delivery that gets the laughs. Sometimes the jokes are kind of corny, but I don't really know. I hope. Regardless of however anyone views me, if I am mentally 50 or not, I hope that people enjoy my tangents and what I talk about nonetheless. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, big shout out to E. Graham for putting in a $5 donation without a comment. Thank you very much for your support. We appreciate you very much. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Chris Kaufman Jr. Excuse me, who says, what are the odds that Putin ends up like Tsar Nicholas II?
The odds of that are probably low. I feel like he would most likely try and flee, and he may succeed, but I don't know where he'd go. So then that kind of throws us back in the loop if that may happen to him. So honestly, I'd have to say it's a 50-50. I can't really give you a clear answer on it, because if he can leave Russia, and there's a country that'll take him, he'll be fine. But if he can't leave Russia, then he will end up like that, most likely, if there's some kind of coup. And so with that, I hope that addresses the question fairly well, and thank you once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving right along, we have a $5 super chat from Anthony, who says, Enforcer, compare yourself to Gordon Freeman from Half-Life, Slava Ukraine.
Gordon Freeman from Half-Life.
Gordon Ramsay?
I don't know what Half-Life is.
This is raw.
It's raw. This guy. I don't know. Kind of too thin of a face. I got like a really square, blocky face, and this is too slender. So, I mean, the goatee, yeah, but the rest of the face, too thin. So with that, I hope that addresses the comment fairly well, and I thank you once again for the support. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and I found another link that Susie Halsey has sent me in the Discord, so I'm checking that out in the meantime. But up next, we have a $5 super chat from Rodnolf Claw, who says, only 2 cups of coffee. I drink 4 to 5 cups a day, just like what Uncle Roger asks. So why so weak? Why so weak? And Rodnov, you don't know what kind of coffee we're drinking. We're drinking the straight rot gut type coffee, like the cold brew with like way too much caffeine in it. So 2 cups is like overkill.
And also, shame on you, Uncle Roger. Do not like. Believe it or not, Uncle Roger doesn't talk like that. He actually has a British accent. Did you know that, Matthew?
Who's Uncle Roger?
You know, Uncle Roger, the guy who's like the Asian cook on YouTube.
I have no idea who this is.
You know, he's the guy who goes, emotional damage. You know, like, you know, he's that guy. You like, you don't know him?
No. And also, I'm trying to look here in Enforcer. I can't tell if this is actually happening right now or not, but it looks like Putin may be giving a speech. No, I'm being told it's fake. Never mind. A false alarm. But no, I don't know who that is.
So anyways, Uncle Roger is, let me just pull him up real quick. Uncle Roger. This guy. You ever heard of him?
Let me try to get over there to it. No.
What? What? Man, he's a pretty funny fella. That's one of the few people I do know. Anyways, since Matthew didn't know the reference, I do thank you for the support. And also, we drink the rawest rock gut there is. This stuff has like 200 milligrams for like 6 ounces of it. So it's pretty strong. So 2 cups of it, you're pushing it. So with that, I thank you for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from BSG Wolf, who says, Enforcer, please say, I'm not supposed to be here. Look up Clerks Brian O'Halloran.
Clerks Brian O'Halloran. No. Nah.
Well, he actually kind of does look like you a little bit in that one picture.
Which one?
The top one. Go up one.
This one?
To the right.
That one?
There you go.
Oh, no. No.
Just a little bit.
No. I mean, like this one, yeah. The hair, no. But the goatee, like down here, yeah, I could see that, actually. So with that, I hope that addresses the comment fairly well, and I think we may be getting closer to a match. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and moving right along, while I put this other one into the spreadsheet real quick, we have a $5 donation from Farm Builders, who says, I think we can all agree that the Enforcer is the spitting image of the 50th president of the States.
Can you reread that one
Who's
again
the
real quick?
Who's the 50th? That's right, they don't exist yet.
The 50th is me. I will be the 50th president of the United States of America. So with that, I thank you for the support, and I hope y'all all vote for me in the 2040 presidential election. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and next up, we have a $5 super chat from Santiago Flores, who says, Donut Fund, guys. Surprising reveal, and cheers.
And thank you so much for the support. I'm glad that you did enjoy the face reveal, and of course, cheers. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and I actually just saw someone, Matthew. I think our plans have been canceled for the night. Strawhead83 just said, Sky News is reporting that Putin's speech has been canceled without explanation after a 2-hour delay.
I wonder why. I wonder something's happened to the fella.
Well, he's been poisoned. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
Somebody said Putin is live now. I think you might be watching the fake one. There is a stream on YouTube right now that is going live, and it looks like he's talking, but it's actually fake. But anyways, moving right along, we have a $5 super chat from Kathy Carr, who says, from the female part of your audience, you guys look good.
Well, I thank you for the support. 10% of our viewers are female, and so I thank you so much for the high praise. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And next up, we have a $5 super chat from Andrea J, who says, I'd started watching a few weeks before Matt came on board. I thought you looked great, but the opposite of how I pictured.
Interesting. And he's addressing that to, and they're addressing that to you or me?
To you.
Oh, well, thank you for the support. Of course, everyone said that I did not look how they expected. They actually expected me to look like Matthew and Matthew to look like me, but it's actually the other way around. And so I thank you for the support. Thank you for saying I look good. I try my best, but, you know, I am what I am. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Alex Wolf, who says, how do you think a Bradley with tow would do in this environment? Also, Russia ruined our plans of slowly killing them with McDonald's in the war.
Well, I thank you for the support. And can you reread that one again, Matthew?
How do you think a Bradley with tow would do in this environment? And also, Russia ruined our plans of slowly killing them with McDonald's in the war.
I think a Bradley would do quite well, actually. It is somewhat of a recon vehicle. It's also pretty heavily equipped. It has a 25mm Bushmaster gun, and it also can carry 2 TOW2s, which are incredibly good. Each one of them pretty much operates just like a Javelin, just a little bit larger, and they are wire-guided. Which means that you have to have kind of a clear line of sight to the target. You can't really jiggle the missile around too much in flight, or you could lose the wire in the missile too. But still, I think it would do quite well, actually. And so with that, I hope I answered the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again. And before we move on, how many do we have left, Matthew?
It looks like we have about 12.
All right. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Robin M, who says, making you wordlier. High five that.
And thank you for the support. And I don't know what wordlier means, but I do thank you for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And next up, we have a $5 super chat from Ketter, who says, I heard the referendums are so Russia can try to legitimize treating the Luhansk and Donetsk as Russia and defend more aggressively. What do you think?
I would have to agree with that entirely. I think that's probably the goal that the Russians are going for. So that way, if Ukraine does begin to retake land, they can coin it as a defense of the motherland instead of a defense of their offensive that is now a defensive. So I hope I've answered that question fairly well, and I thank you very much for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Hop Light, who says, celebrity lookalike for the enforcer, a younger Danny McBride.
Danny McBride. There's been a lot of suggestions as to what I look like. Oh no. Oh no. Let's see here.
What did this guy do?
I don't know. Does this look like me?
No, I don't think so.
I was about to say no, but I was like, maybe that's just me looking at myself. I don't know. I don't see it. But I do thank you for the support. Look, he looks like Kanye. Well, anyways, with that, I thank you for the support.
Wait a minute. What was the headline was what on that?
I don't know.
He asked him to play him in a documentary.
Apparently so. So with that, I hope that addressed the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And next up, we have a $20 super chat from KG, who says, slightly confirmed, all NATO support aircraft have turned their transponders off. I think something is brewing. And KG, if that is true, something is brewing, and that's not good at all.
And I would have to agree that could be a pretty precarious situation if NATO is even having all of their aircraft turn their transponders off, because something serious may begin to happen within the next few hours, which may tell us that they have a little bit of an idea of what Putin is about to say. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, KG, and I hope that addresses the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And folks, you know a poll is coming here shortly, so stand by. But up next, we have a $10 super chat from Spencer Anoxon once again, who says, LMFAO with the Russia-Alaska claim. Putin's should not hope to anger the American population.
And I would agree. I don't think it should anger the United States at all. The United States is a force to be reckoned with, regardless of who you are in the world. Even if you're China, the United States is a mammoth of a giant in terms of economic power and its military abilities. And I don't think the Russians should be messing with us too much. And so with that, thank you for the support. I hope that does answer the question. Oops, excuse me. Sorry, coffee's getting to me. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And Enforcer, somebody said you look like Wolfman Jack.
Who in the world's Wolfman Jack?
I just pulled him up. You'll have to see.
No?
Put it on the big screen, Enforcer.
I'm looking at him on a second screen, and I have to say no?
Definitely not, but it was just funny. I don't know why.
It is pretty funny. It's starting to become concerning on being related. Look, it's Wolfman Jack. We all know who
that
this
doesn't
is.
look like Wolfman Jack. That looks like the guy that created Star Wars.
Yeah, that's George Lucas. And so that we are on to the next one, and thank you once again. Also, I saw, just to answer this one, because I see one person going insane, DJ Mancow. Here's DJ Mancow. Do I look like that, Matthew? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, I was just making sure. So that we were on to the next one.
And also, folks, I saw somebody asking in the live chat, I can't remember who it was, but somebody said, are transponders communications? And yes, transponders basically tell like people on the ground what the aircraft is, where it's from, and all of its identification info. So if they turn that off, you basically make the thing invisible. To my understanding, Enforcer, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, that would be correct.
But it still shows up on radar, though.
They will show up on radar, at least the ones that are not stealth. But the ones that are stealth will show up on neither radar nor transponder.
Yeah, so basically, if they turn off the transponder, they can't tell what the aircraft is or who it is. So that means they're trying to be secretive for whatever reason, and we don't know what the reason is. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat, we have a $20 donation from Magic Sky Girl, who says, Enforcer, please pull up Ed Norton in Fight Club and American History X. It's close to a mirror image.
All right, so we'll pull up Ed Norton, Norton Fight Club. Ed Norton Fight Club. So let's see. Please pull up. So this is supposed to be a spitting image of who? That's the question. Is it supposed to be me? Because I don't think that looks like me. It's too thin. Too thin. Well, let's see. In Fight Club and American History X. American History X. Honestly, at the end of the night, I'm just gonna say apparently I'm all on my own. Oh, wait a minute. We can't show that.
Ooh.
I'm sorry about that. Thank you for the support, Magic Sky Girl. But unfortunately, I can't show the other one. I have seen that movie in passing before. It was on a TV somewhere. But unfortunately, I can't show that on here. So I don't think I look like him. But thank you once again, and we're going to move on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Alan Franson, who says, nice work on the face reveal. Good-looking guys. Keep the channel going, even when you're both in law school. You've built up something great. Solid potential for general news or other content, etc. And Alan, thank you very much for the high praise, and thank you for your support. And I said to the Enforcer a while back that we might have to stop it when we start law school because it's going to be such a heavy workload, but I'm beginning to think, the more I look into law school, it's not going to be as tough as I think it is. I think in my mind, for whatever reason, it's going to be ungodly difficult. But we were told that about college too, so it turned out that it wasn't as difficult as I thought it was. It's actually much easier than I thought it was. But Enforcer, what are your thoughts?
And I thank you once again for the kind comments as well, Alan Franson. And of course, that helps us to keep the stream running as well. And also, we are going to try and keep this up as long as we can. I think I'm going to try and keep this up all the way through law school and maybe even out of it, because I'm having a fun time doing it. And I think that I would really enjoy to keep on doing it. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Alan. And I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and let's see here. I'm seeing that it looks like on Reddit. I'm not sure. I'm trying to find the source of that comment about the transponders being turned off on NATO planes. And the only thing I see is on Reddit, and it appears the moderators have removed the post about it. So it might have been false potentially, and the mods got it, but we'll have to wait and see. But moving on to our next super chat, we have a $10 donation from Spencer Enoxen once again, who says, LOL, America is locked and loaded. Putler can sit with his imagination.
And that is true. America is always ready to go. In case y'all don't know, American forces could be anywhere in the world in under 24 hours, which is honestly impressive to think that we could be anywhere within a day. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support, and I would have to entirely agree with that. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Oats Air. Got it right that time. He said, answer another question from the live chat in Slav, Ukraine, and we will honor the request. So this question is sponsored by Oats Air, and this question goes to Gone to Beach, who says, Enforcer, what's going on at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant at the moment?
Currently, it appears that all the activity has subsided there and the reactors are remaining stable. The plant is no longer under attack and it has been reconnected to the grid. So it seems like the situation is under control for now, but as we know, that can change within an instant. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well.
Missed.
What?
You missed me.
Well, what do you mean?
I heard some loud bang over there from something.
Oh, I didn't hear anything. And so with that, I hope that
I don't know where that came from then.
I hope that answers the question fairly well, Osair. Oh, well, not Osair. I hope that answers the question fairly well. And thank you so much, Osair, for sponsoring the live chat question. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again. And we are on to the next one. And thank you once again. Hello?
Enforcer, can you hear me at all?
I can. Can you hear me?
Just barely.
All right, and so with that, we are on to the next one.
Okay, there we go. So up next, we have a $10 super chat from Piggy. So thank you very much, Piggy, for the $10 super chat. And you didn't leave a comment, but thank you very much for the support. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Alex Wolf, who says, against ISS, F-15E Strike Eagle, 14,995 weapons released, A-10 Thunderbolt 2, 13,856, B-1 Lancer, 9,195, FA-18 Super Hornets, 8,920, F-16 Fighting Falcon, 7,679, B-52 Strato Fortress, 5,041.
And I thank you for the support. I don't know what those statistics are an exact statement of, but I do thank you for sharing the numbers with us. And if you could clarify what that means, we'll try and circle back to it, so that way we can talk about it. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and next up we have a $5 super chat from Wojtek CYVR, who says, sadly, Canadian dollar is worth less now, but if I could sponsor a question, it would make me happy. Slava Ukraine. And Wojtek, of course you can sponsor a live chat question. And this one is sponsored by Wojtek CYVR. And it goes to John Albrecht, who says, have you seen the vid of the Chinese military vehicles arriving into the Russian army base?
I have not, and if I find it, I will try and show it on stream. And so with that, I hate that it's a short answer, but sadly I just haven't seen it. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for sponsoring a live chat question, Wojtek.
Oh boy, it's doing it again.
Well, we just got to power through. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
Can you hear me, Enforcer?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, but the thing's having a tremendous issue. I can barely hear you. But anyways, moving on to our next one, we have a $5 donation from MJ, who says, if the war ended tomorrow, what topic would this channel switch to?
That's a great question. This channel would switch into a history and current events channel still. We would still talk about current events. We would most likely start talking about the ongoing border conflict with Armenia and Azerbaijan. We could also talk about the ongoing conflict in Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. We could also talk about the kind of Burmese civil war that's been going on for some while down there. We could talk about economics. We could talk about history. We could talk about anything. We would try and keep the live streams around the best we could. They wouldn't be every day of the week, of course, because this does take a lot of effort and eats up a lot of my free time, because of course I work like 50 to 60 hours a week on just streams alone, so it would most likely go in that direction. Now, I hope that y'all stay around. I hope the whole Leaf Spring Army is here for that, because hopefully the content would be good and it would be interesting. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, Enforcer, and I think we're going to have to put a cap on the live chats. We have 7 more to go, but I have a feeling more are going to roll in a minute, and we're going to be here until at least 2 in the morning. So would you like to go ahead and put a cap on it?
Yes, I would. Actually, I was wondering if you were thinking the same thing. We're going to have to be putting a cap on tonight's super chats. I thank you all so much for supporting us. It does mean a lot and helps us to keep this channel running, but I guess fortunately or unfortunately, there has been so many of them tonight. We can't answer them all. Well, we can't answer all of them, but we can't answer any more than the ones we have right now. And so if you would like to support this channel with a super chat, please wait until tomorrow. Throw it in first thing on stream, and it'll most likely be one of the first ones answered. And so with that, I thank you all so much once again for the support, but we will only be answering the remaining super chats that we have as of right now, and then we're going to answer probably just around 5 live chats or so, and then round out tonight's stream. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And next up, we have a $2 super chat from CA Lags, who says, grow a Lincoln beard by 2040.
I thank you for the support, CA Lags, and I don't know if I can. I've actually tried growing out a full beard before. It is a little patchy right now. Hopefully it'll grow out, but one side kind of had a little open spot in it that I didn't really like. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the interesting suggestion.
All right, and I'm going to go ahead and read off this next super chat because I think it came in right as we announced the cutoff. This one is from Brett31979, who puts in a $5 donation and says, in reference to the NATO transponders and stealth prevents targeting lock, but Russian radar absolutely sees them with a 2 to 5 mile radius of error.
Interesting. I did not know that, and I thank you very much for sharing that. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does answer the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a $2 super chat from the BK Knight 3, who says, "Would you ever do a watch along with Red Dawn?"
Sadly, I couldn't. That would be massive copyright infringement. For me to do that with Red Dawn, because I think it's owned by Columbia Pictures, and Columbia Pictures will murder me for that, and YouTube will bust out my kneecaps.
Hypothetically,
well,
hyperbole speaking.
Yeah, in Minecraft, as they say. And so with that, I thank you so well. Anyways, we're not getting in trouble for that because they're saying they would do unspeakable acts of violence to us, not the other way around. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you once again for the interesting suggestion. It does sound fun.
And next up, a big shout out to Lewis Highsmith for putting in a $2 super chat, and also Richard Parnell for putting in a $1 super chat as well. They don't leave comments, but thank you very much to both of you for your support. And moving right along, we have a $2 donation from Florida Hacker, who says Parkinson's and shakes is decline. Is Hitler now Putin?
I would say so. They do have kind of the same afflictions as far as we can tell. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, Galaxy Fur 4014 puts in a $2 donation and says Enforcer kind of looked like Enforcer, I think.
And thank you so much for the support. And I think at the end of the night, that's what I'm going to have to go with, because everyone is given an option as to what I look like, and really none of them look like me. I haven't seen anyone that looks like me yet, and I think, honestly, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if that means I'm such a hideous creature that no one even looks similar to my hideousness, or if I'm just different. I don't know. But with that, I hope that addresses the comment fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $1 super chat from Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin, who says, "I'm still in shock after that face reveal."
Well, I hope I didn't. I hope it didn't turn anyone in your household to stone. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. So with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $1 super chat from Mr. E-Man, who says, "Keep up the good work."
And thank you so much, E-Man, for the kind words. We will try and keep up the good work the best we can. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and that's the last super chat of the night. So now we're going to answer probably a limited amount of live chat questions due to how late we're running.
We're actually
because folks,
we're actually going to have to cut it really low tonight because it's gone on incredibly long, way longer than it normally would. So we're only going to be able to answer around 3 to 5 of them.
All right, so 3 to 5. And I was about to say, folks, believe it or not, we actually do have like a full day that we have gone today. So college and everything else. So it's been a long day.
I woke up at 5 o'clock this morning, and I've been going ever since without even a pause to really eat. So it's been a long day for me, and it's like at this point now the coffee feels like it's kind of starting to wear off after the overdose that I had almost the whole stream. So with that, we're going to answer 3 to 5 live chats, and then we're going to be rounding out tonight's stream. I'm sorry it's a low number, but I hope y'all understand.
All right, and I gotta admit, around like midnight our time, which is 1 o'clock Eastern, that's when I start fading out usually. But let's see here. So first up in the live chat, we have a question from El Fuego, who says, "What is more likely by the Russians? Tactical nuclear weapon, nuclear accident at a power plant, political nuclear meltdown, or something else?"
I would have to say, I think at the nuclear power plant, I think the worst thing that can happen is a nuclear meltdown that's initiated by a Russian attack. I think that's most likely what would happen in a worst case scenario, but then again, take it with a grain of salt, because any of those options could happen. They all have kind of an equal chance. And so with that, I hope that answers the question, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Terry, who says, "Do you think the guys on the Russian media monitor would go fight, or would they be the cowards?"
I think they would be the cowards. It's always it's usually always the ones who talk the loudest that are the scaredest. Notice how a certain guy in Germany in the 40s was a real big loudmouth, but as soon as it started to come near his time to actually face the music, he offed himself. So I usually think that those people, that particular kind, are usually your cowards for the most part. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And we are now going to move on to the second to last live chat of the night.
And this one goes to Fethdar, who says, how embarrassing would it be for Russia if they mobilized and then were brutally defeated?
Could you reread that one again real quick?
How embarrassing would it be for Russia if they mobilized and then were brutally defeated?
That would be incredibly embarrassing, and I really don't know how they would react to that. I don't know if they would, like Matthew believes, pull out nuclear weapons at that point, or finally just give up. I feel like that would be such an embarrassment that that's something they really couldn't ever recover from, at least in the modern world. So I don't know. I think that would actually start leading Russia into extremes. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly.
The Cambot is back.
It is?
Yes, and it just got deleted.
Yeah.
Bot be gone.
And so with that, we are on to the final question of the night. So who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
All right, and that viewer is the McEwens, who says, Enforcer, do you think that NATO or the West would be joining if Russia fully mobilized?
I think if Russia fully mobilized, we'll be sending in loads of support, but I don't think any Western countries will directly join the war with Ukraine, because then that escalates it automatically into a third world war, which would be catastrophic, regardless of the end result of who won, although we know the West would win. And so, with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I thank you all so much for watching. Of course, it's been a pleasure to cover tonight's news and, of course, answer everyone's questions. I hope you all have enjoyed it as well, and I can see that even till the very end of the stream, the face reveal has been on everyone's minds, and everyone's been saying that Matthew looks like Matthew Broderick, which I have to say he does, and no one really came up with a consensus of what I look like, so I guess I just still look like the Enforcer, kind of on my own. So with that, I thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you all have enjoyed tonight's stream. I hope you all have been enjoying everything we've been doing, and of course, Slava Ukraini, and Slava the Least Spring Army. I will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the day 211 news of the war in Ukraine. Thank you all once again, and I will see you around. Good night, and take care.